Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about What If Deku Had Pro Quirk Part 1. If you guys enjoy this What If and want to see Part 2, comment down below. And let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story SpeakerForTheDead from 𝐴3. So let's start the video. Prologue. 𝐬𝐻𝐻 is 4, and he wakes up every morning excited. Maybe this is the day he gets his quirk. All the other kids are slowly getting theirs: extendable fingers and bat-like wings, elastic body, and minor telekinesis. And of course, there's his best friend 𝐀𝐦, with the most heroic quirk ever, Explosion. They're gonna be great heroes together once 𝐬𝐻𝐻 gets his. Every day that passes without one showing up, 𝐀𝐦's sneer gets wider, and 𝐬𝐻𝐻 dreams are filled with the clashing of metal on metal. 𝐬𝐻𝐻 is 5 and his parents take him to the quirk specialist. They are worried that he's a year past the standard time for one's quirk to appear and nothing has happened. The doctor takes x-rays and runs tests and assures the 𝐷𝐷𝐼s that he doesn't have the toe joint that indicates quirklessness and is likely a late bloomer or has a so-called invisible quirk with absurd activation requirements. Hisashi and 𝐴 breathe a sigh of relief at that, a puff of smoke huffing from the fire breather's mouth. There's nothing wrong with being quirkless. They just know if he was, then 𝐬𝐻𝐻 would have a more difficult life. 𝐬𝐻𝐻 is 6 and 𝐀𝐦's sneer has turned from mild annoyance to anger and bullying. Deemed quirkless by the council of his fellow 6-year-olds because no quirk has reared its head yet, 𝐬𝐻𝐻 is an outcast. Dubbed a useless Deku by 𝐀𝐦, his best friend, he comes home with bruises explained away by roughhousing amongst children. 𝐬𝐻𝐻 is 7 and is stronger than anyone in his class. He takes the annual fitness test, and they find that he's stronger and faster than most people twice his age. His parents take him back to the quirk specialist, who has him redo the tests, once with quirk suppressants and once without. There is no change in his scores. Quirk-adjacent mutations, the doctor explains to the rapt audience of a small family. Your body has adapted to better utilize your quirk, making you stronger, faster, and having better reflexes. He pauses to straighten his glasses, taking in young 𝐬𝐻𝐻 vibrating with excitement. I predict that by the time you hit puberty, you will have athletic abilities just beyond what a dedicated baseline human could achieve. 𝐬𝐻𝐻 is ecstatic. He bounds into school the next day, bouncing up and down, excited to tell 𝐀𝐦. That excitement is crushed at the same time an explosion-powered fist collides with his stomach. "Stop fucking lying, you shitty Deku," Bakugo growls, surprisingly menacingly for a 7-year-old. "You'll never be anything but a worthless, quirkless fuck." 𝐬𝐻𝐻 lays there for several minutes after his friend stalks away. He doesn't tell anyone else about his news. 𝐬𝐻𝐻 is 8, and the ringing of steel and the thudding of blows that echo through his dreams has migrated to his waking hours. A constant cacophony consistently present, every minute of every day. Sometimes it's louder than other times, but he tunes it out. It's just a part of his life. He doesn't tell anyone. 𝐬𝐻𝐻 is content. He sits next to Hisashi as the tall man's throat glows like an ember, expelling tiny wisps of flame in fascinating shapes from his mouth. 𝐴 is in the kitchen cooking, and the smell of katsudon floods the small apartment. 𝐬𝐻𝐻 loves his family. "You'll be a great hero," his dad proudly declares, a smile on his face as his boy rambles about heroes and all might. "You'll make us proud." 𝐬𝐻𝐻 is 9, just hours away from turning 10. He and 𝐴 wait at home, ready to celebrate his birthday when Hisashi gets home from work. The tall fire breather sends them a text. "I'm almost done with work. I'll be home in an hour. I have a special surprise for you, 𝐬𝐻𝐻." They wait an hour, and then 2. After 3 hours, their concern is quietly growing. Repeated calls by 𝐴 are answered with no response, sent straight to voicemail. After 4 hours, they call the police and file a missing person report. A detective with kind eyes and a lie detector quirk takes their statement and promises that they'll do their best to find Hisashi. A month passes, with no leads, no clues, and no hope. The police shuffle the case to a lower priority and 𝐴 cries. 𝐬𝐻𝐻 doesn't. Whether the tears are dried up by the years of bullying and the crackle of explosions, or from the surreptitious whispers of the neighbors, or the blatant taunting of his schoolmates, he does not know. "Did you hear his dad left?" "I heard it's because he couldn't stand to have a quirkless son." "It's no surprise with such a worthless fuck for a kid," snarls 𝐀𝐦. All of his protests are ignored. All his claims that he's not quirkless unfounded. No one cares. 𝐸𝐴 presents him with Hisashi's surprise. A limited edition silver 𝐬𝐻 hoodie. Original condition, 5 sizes too big. So you can grow into it, his mom explains. We wanted you to have it for a while. Izuku hugs his mom and tries to imbue as much gratitude and love as he can into the embrace. They hold each other for an hour before they break apart and watch a feel-good movie to help cheer up. Izuku is 11 and has taken to wearing Hisashi's jackets and hoodies when he goes out. He is positively swamped in the garments that hung on his dad's massive frame, making him look even smaller and scrawnier than he is. But they smell like smoke and mint, the scent of Hisashi's quirk, and he takes comfort in the knowledge that there's a part of his dad with him. Izuku is 12, and he begs his mom to let him learn to fight, arguing that he will need to know as a hero, and getting a head start before his quirk comes in can only help. 𝐸𝐴 hems, haws, and listens to his argument, but agrees to nothing. Izuku will ask again next month, and the next, and the next, and the next. Izuku is 13, and he gets in an argument with his mom. It wasn't their first argument, not even the first on the subject, him being a hero. But for some reason, it blew out of control and ended with Izuku leaving the house for a run to blow off steam. He ran for what seemed like hours, slowly calming down, before he realized that his mom was just worried about him and didn't want to lose him. Sighing, he began looking for a train station to make his way back home and apologized. Once he found one, he noticed that the line was shut down due to a villain attack near a shopping center. Grumbling slightly, his musing on whether it would be better to wait for the train to reopen or to run home was interrupted by his ringtone. A phone call is here. A phone call is here. A phone call is he. Waving off the annoyed glances of the other people in the station, he quickly answered his phone. Hey, Mom. Izuku, honey, I want to say I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, Mom. I realize you're just worried about me, and I shouldn't have blown up on you. It's just, this is my dream. I know, Izuku. That's why I wanted to apologize. I shouldn't be trying to hold you back from your dream. She sniffled a bit over the phone. Can you make me a promise, Izuku? Of course, Mom. Be the best hero you can be, baby. Make me and your dad proud. She cut off her sentence with a gasp. Mom, Izuku exclaimed, slightly frantic. Are you okay? I'm fine. The grimace was evident in her voice. I just stubbed my toe. You should be more careful, Izuku chided playfully. I've got to go. Mom, I'm trying to catch a train. Okay, honey, I love you very much. Please, always remember that, okay? Are you okay, Mom? I'm fine, she reassured. I'll see you soon. Of course, Mom, I love you too. Grinning, he decided he would chance the run home. I'll see you soon. He hung up and began his run home, not heeding the sinking feeling in his gut. As Izuku jogs up to his house, the first thing he notices is the police car out front and a familiar kind-eyed detective and his feline-headed partner standing near the door. The second thing he notices is the ringing of steel and the clashing of metal growing louder in his mind as his stomach sinks. Ah, Midoriya, Detective Tsukachi calls as he draws near. We're going to need you to come to the station. There's been an accident. The noise in his head grows louder. It's your mother, and louder. She was caught in a villain attack. And louder, drowning out the detective's words. I'm afraid she didn't make it. Izuku falls to his knees, hot tears dripping down his face. The clashing and noise growing louder till everything goes black. The next month passes in a blur. His mother died, torn from life by an errant fireball from one of Endeavor's fights. Izuku saw the footage, saw the carelessness that the pro fling his quirk around a shopping mall while battling a minor villain, saw the fire careen into the shop his mom was in, sending it up in flames. Endeavor goes before a tribunal, and they convict him of negligence on the field of battle. His punishment? A 2% dock in pay, with 1% going to the store owners and 1% going to the family of the victims. There was only one victim, and there's only one member of the family left. A measly 1% for the life of a mother. A pittance punishment for depriving a teen of the last family he has. Izuku has never been angrier in his life. The funeral is quiet. Few people attend as they bury his mom's ashes in a graveyard near the ocean. It's a beautiful day, the sky red and purple, a cool breeze with cherry blossoms in the wind. Izuku returns there most nights. He can't stop crying. 𝐸𝐴's will is read. It's fairly simple. All her possessions and wealth go to Izuku, and Izuku is to become an emancipated minor on 2 conditions. He attends and completes high school. He stays with the family of 𝐀𝐦 𝐍𝐭 until he is 18. It's as this is read that Midoriya realizes he never told his mom about 𝐀𝐦's bullying and torment, and that the family she chose is almost certainly the Bakugas with how close she and Mitsuki were. 𝐀𝐦 is livid when he moves in. Tsukachi is a calming presence as he packs up his house. Everything he can't take to the Bakuga's spare room going into storage until he can find a use for it. Whether the detective sticks around because of some sense of duty, or because he truly cares, Izuku doesn't know. He appreciates it either way. The kind-eyed officer with a truth quirk gives him a business card as he drops him off at his new home. "Call me if you ever need anything. That's my personal phone, and I'll be there if you need me." With a wave and a tip of his hat, Tsukachi drives off and Midoriya makes his way into his new home. 𝐀𝐦 luckily can't do anything under Mitsuki's eagle eye, so the bullying is confined to school and the alleyways like it always had been. Midoriya starts taking some online classes so he won't have to attend full-time next year, and life moves on. The Bakugas have a nice house, but it's not his home. He weathers 𝐀𝐻's irate glares with practiced ease, but Mitsuki and Masaru are kind. They just don't love him. Not that he truly expected them to. After all, he is not their son, not their blood. But as a consequence, he spends most of his time out of the house, either running endlessly, the pounding of feet on pavement keeping his head occupied, visiting his mom's grave, or tracking down hero fights and writing every bit of analysis he can eke out into his notebooks down. He is rarely there. Some nights he even sleeps in the park. Nothing but his dad's jacket and the stars for company. He begins letting his hair grow out, some half-formed notion of styling it like his mom's as a tribute guiding his actions. He goes to school. He analyzes heroes. He mourns. Life goes on. Izuku is 15 now, and though he has had a growth spurt and stands at a respectable 6 feet tall, he hasn't changed much. He is still gangly and swamped in oversized jackets. His hair has grown out and is in the length in between possible styles, leaving it hanging down over his eyes. His growth spurt has interfered with his coordination, making him stumble over nothing and his own feet. He is the epitome of the awkwardness of puberty and teenagedom, which is why it's no surprise that on his way back from a hero fight in downtown Musatafu, he trips over the air and face plants painfully into the sidewalk. Grumbling softly, he picks himself up and takes in the sight of the oddest building he has ever seen. If a skyscraper had fallen in love with a traditional Japanese dojo, and they had eloped and had a secret baby together, the resulting building wouldn't be identical to the one Izuku stood in front of, but anyone who knew them would find them eerily similar. He had passed this spot at least once a week for 10 years, and had no memory of seeing such a strange building. Nevertheless, remembering his promise to his mom and his need to learn to fight, Izuku, noticing the open sign, pushed open the door and entered the dojo with the accompanying jingle. The inside was standard for dojos, at least based on what he had seen online, with the exception of an array of weapons hung on the padded wall. Staffs and clubs, swords and spears, and even what appeared to be nunchucks adorned the walls. In the center of the room sat a hulking man, in a pose reminiscent of meditation, with his eyes closed. In the corner, there was a ratty couch seating what appeared to be a small orange cat and a giant yellow caterpillar. As if moving of their own accord, Izuku's feet carried him to a section of the wall that held both a European sword and a vaguely familiar mask. Almost in a trance, he reached out to grab the sword, the echoes of steel and fighting in his head growing louder as his fingers inched closer. "I wouldn't touch that if I were you." The voice cut through his reverie, startling him into a jump as the man who had been seated was standing behind him, and the caterpillar glares at him with red eyes. "There is a rather potent ward on it. You would not enjoy the experience." The man appeared to be Izuku's height, but with a bevy of muscle the teen didn't possess. He was highly intimidating. "Now, what are you doing in my dojo?" The green-haired teen was nervous, yet resolute as he pled his case. "I need to learn how to fight. I want to be a hero, and I can't save people if I can't save myself. I've been looking for a dojo and literally stumbled into this one," he finished with an amused smile. "How did you get through my wards?" the man asked, slowly circling the teen. "You're what?" This isn't a normal dojo. Only someone who already knew the location or was of true heroic spirit could have found it. "I don't know about that," Izuku says incredulously. "I've been coming this way for years and have never seen this place before." The dots in his mind connected. The mask on the wall and the large man's talk of wards suddenly thrust the identity of the man into his head, and he gasped. "You're the pro-hero Bastion." Formerly ranked 42nd, you retired 5 years ago. Your quirk can produce wards and shield based on your own energy. He whipped out his analysis notebook. I have so many questions for you. Hold on now. Bastion holds up a hand to stop the muttering. What do you think? The cocoon on the couch shrugs and the cat meows. Well, it looks like 𝐬𝐻𝐬 and 𝗏𝗏𝗏 are fine with you. The man shrugged his intimidatingly large shoulders and held out a hand in greeting. Welcome to my dojo. My name is 𝐬𝐻𝐬, formerly the hero Bastion. Izuku barely registered his introduction. Scampering over to the couch and the small cat he now noticed had only 3 legs. You have a cat named 𝗏𝗏𝗏, Midoriya gasped, his voice soft with awe. No, the caterpillar over there. Bastion jerks his thumb towards the cocooned man, apparently named 𝐬𝐻𝐬, in the corner. Has a cat named 𝗏𝗏𝗏. I just feed, house, and care for it. You know I don't have regular enough hours to care for my pet. The yellow caterpillar rasped out, slowly peeling out of the sleeping bag it was in, revealing a man with tired eyes in a black jumpsuit and a long scarf. Besides, I own half of this dojo and 𝗏𝗏𝗏 is my roommate. Huffing amusedly, Bastion turned back to the gangly teen. This will be a commitment. If you truly want to be trained by us, it will be brutal, but you must give it your all. Midoriya met his gaze with fire and determination in his eyes. I will, I swear it. Good, then let's begin. The former pro gestures for the teen to shed his oversized jacket and put on some spare workout clothes. They met in the center of the room on the mat. Yasai was pleased to see that despite his first impressions, the young man did have some muscle, whipcord thin, but with a subtle strength. As he ran the boy through several warm-up exercises, he was even more pleased that Midoriya held a better level of fitness than most. As they broke for water, Midoriya turned to his teacher and asked, So what will you teach me first? First, Bastion replied, we teach you how to take a punch. And then? Then we teach you how to throw a punch. And then? His new sensei bared his teeth in an eager manner. Then we'll see. Turned out to be about 3 months of Bastion and 𝐬𝐻𝐬 beating him up every day. After 3 months, 𝐬𝐻𝐬 decided that he needed to learn to defend himself in varied environments, and took to beating him up in the alley behind the dojo. Of course, they weren't beating him up, though you wouldn't be able to tell with how sore he was every day. They were teaching him various martial arts and sparring with him, and he picked it up fast. By the time 6 months had passed, he had made the progress of someone doing martial arts for over a year. Every move felt incredibly natural to him. He became proficient after only 1 or 2 repetitions to Yosai's astonishment. Yasai even asked if that was his quirk, and Midoriya explained that he didn't know what his quirk was yet, but he was certain he had one. He spent more and more time at the odd little dojo, gradually growing closer and confiding in the 2 pros. To his hero nerd embarrassment, he still couldn't figure out who 𝐬𝐻𝐬's hero identity was, and the man in question only smirked and told him to figure it out. Every time he entered the building, his attention was drawn to the wall of swords, but he stayed focused and worked on his fighting skills. He was growing in fitness as well. While he had always been unnaturally strong, he was growing stronger and looking it too. His scrawny muscles were slowly transforming into the build of a gymnast with a penchant for weightlifting. His shoulders grew wider and his biceps bigger, and to his astonishment one day, he looked down and noticed that he had abs. Still, you wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at him on the street. While he filled out his dad's jackets a tiny bit better, he was still swamped in them, which made him look smaller than he was. One day, some 5 months after he started, he stumbled into the dojo with bruises and burns that didn't come from his teachers. The 2 pros exchanged a worried glance, but went on with that day's lesson anyways. Midoriya was out of it, just going through the motions. After 1 too many mistakes, missed blocks and fumbled throws, Bastion called it a day and sent the teen off to the locker room to shower and change. He eventually walked back into the main room, hair wet from the shower and a familiar large jacket on. Go talk to him, Yosai said to 𝐬𝐻𝐬 with a meaningful glance. The taller pro walked out of the room as the tired man approached Midoriya. You know, 𝐬𝐻𝐬 started, sitting next to the teen on the couch. When I was younger, I was bullied a lot. Midoriya stiffened. Throughout middle and high school, I was ridiculed and put down because of my villainous quirk. What is your quirk? The green-haired teen asked, perking up at the hint towards 𝐬𝐻𝐬's hero identity. Erasure. Izuku gasped as the realization struck him. You're Eraserhead, the underground pro who specializes in close-quarter fights and hostage negotiations. Eraserhead held up a hand to forestall the rambling questions that were surely coming. You can ask me anything you want after we talk about this. Midoriya's shoulders slumped, and the excitement faded out of his eyes. What's there to talk about? I'm just the quirkless kid that gets bullied all the time. And that's not gonna change. Izuku finally broke down and spilled the whole story to Aizawa. From when his quirk didn't come in at 4, to when his dad disappeared, his mom died, and further on to the incident today. By the time he had finished, Shouter wrapped the crying teen in a hug, awkwardly patting him on the back. There, the out-of-his-depth pro muttered. As Izuku hiccuped and his tears slowly stopped, he looked up at his friend and mentor and asked, "Does it ever get better?" Aizawa was torn. Should he tell the brutal truth or empty platitudes? It's unlikely to change while you stay where you are. The green-haired teen's expression crumpled. However, when you go to college, when you get a change of scenery and meet new people, you will find people to stand by you, both as friends and equals. Shouta thought of his friends, and all the times they've had his back, as well as his underground hero colleagues. You promise? Midoriya had hope slowly returning to his gaze as he looked at Aizawa. Shouta nodded. It happened for me. Thank you, Aizawa. The two sat in comfortable silence for a while, before Izuku suddenly straightened up and turned to the pro excitedly. Can you erase my quirk? You might be able to feel something, and it could help me figure it out. His mentor shrugged. Sure, it couldn't hurt. Wait. How did you know I could partially sense quirks? The teen quailed slightly under his sharp gaze. Well, I guessed mostly. Pulling out his notebook, he flipped to the Eraserhead page, and Aizawa took in the detailed notes on his quirk and fighting style. Mostly I figured that if you can erase quirks, then you must have some sense of whether or not someone's quirk has been erased. Meaning that you have to have some ability to sense a quirk, even if it's just whether there's one there or not. And I also figured that, kid, Aizawa interrupts his muttering spree. You're an analyzing fiend. But you're also correct. Izuku happily jotted a note down confirming it. I have some limited ability to taste quirks that helps me tell what they are. Nothing specific, but mostly general ideas. Midoriya's frantic writing stilled. You have synesthesia, don't you? Yeah, the pro grudgingly admitted. This kid was smart as hell. I can taste quirks, but I can't taste anything else. That is why I mostly stick to gel packets and energy bars. That's awful. Aizawa shrugged. It is what it is. Now, let's check out your quirk. The pro hero's hair began floating and his eyes flowed a sinister red, and an odd feeling washed over Midoriya as the man activates erasure. Your quirk tastes of mint. Midoriya began frantically writing down what Aizawa was saying. There's an undercurrent of wood smoke just beneath the mint, and the entire thing tastes bubbly or carbonated. There's a slight hint of chocolate and something metallic. As he finished describing the teen's quirk, he blinked, and with a practiced hand, applied eye drops as his hair floated down. So, what does that all mean? The mint, he began explaining, and wood smoke are specific to you, and I can't tell what it signifies. Seeing Midoriya's nod, he continued. The fizziness and chocolate denote it being an emitter type with a slight mutative component. That would be my enhanced strength and reflexes, Midoriya chimed in. The metallic taste, however, Aizawa says with a frown, is familiar. But I can't place where I know it from. That fact looked like it troubled him, but he pressed on. There's one more thing. Oh. Your quirk was strong. One of the strongest I've ever felt. It took some effort to erase it. What does this mean for me? Midoriya asked. It means that you have a quirk. It's an emitter, it's strong, and we just haven't found the activation requirements yet. The pro looked down at his pupil to see him crying. Kid, what's wrong? Shouldn't you be happy? I am happy, he grinned tearily. My mom and I are just overactive criers. By the way, he continued, you should tie your hair down. Huh. So villains can't tell when you use your quirk. Okay, Aizawa ruffled his hair, and the two talked about quirks for several more hours before Midoriya fell asleep. What Izuku didn't notice was that for the short time his quirk was erased, he heard nothing in his head. Thing changed. Bastian gave him a key to the dojo and let him have a room on one of the upper floors. It was odd, a dorm-style hallway with 12 empty rooms, and a steel door with several levels of biometric locks on it at one end, and a rec room on the other. Taking it all in, Midoriya could only shake his head. This is the oddest building I've ever been in. He started spending more and more nights at the dojo, slowly moving his stuff over almost unnoticeably. One day he simply noticed that most of his clothes and hero merch were in the room. He still spent at least 2 nights a week at the Bakugos, but the dojo was slowly becoming home. Time passed. Final exams hit hard, as they always do, and Midoriya was exhausted. As he stumbled, zombie-like through the streets of Musatafu, he came to a crossroads and a decision. Go to the Bakugos, or go to the dojo and take a nap in the rec room. The answer was obvious, and he began trudging towards the dojo. Maybe I can pass out on the couch. Yeah, that'd be nice. The pro-hero Bastion stood at a table ringed with an assortment of other heroes. You know the drill, he instructed. As soon as it's dark, we'll start the raid. We've been after this Quirk trafficking ring for over 2 years, and it's about time we nailed these bastards. The various heroes nodded and murmured their assent, and he continued. Present Mike and Midnight, he inclines his head towards the flashy pros. Will cause a distraction by stopping a conveniently timed bank robbery, drawing the media to them, and leaving us free to work. Yasai gestures towards the detective in the room. Detective Tsukachi will lead a squad of officers to us once we've made it in, and Panacea and I will remain outside to offer support and direction, as well as catch any stragglers. You three, he says to the trio huddled together at one corner of the table, will go in the back. While you two, he says to Aizawa and another hero, will go in the front. Standing tall, he addresses the squad. We do this clean. No muss, no fuss, no mistakes, just like we've done 100 times before. His gaze swept the room. Are there any questions? The underground hero Proxima raises her hand. Are we expecting anyone else? No. Why? Because someone just entered the building. Everyone stiffened and subtly readies their quirks and weapons as the hero Chameleon makes his way to the door, hiding next to it and blending seamlessly with the wall. After a couple of minutes, the handle jiggled and the door opened slowly. In trudged a tired-looking teen, with long green hair and bags under his eyes. A cutting motion Bastion's hand set everyone at ease, and they all watched in silence as the boy stumbled over to the couch, oblivious to everyone in the room. He reached the couch, fumbled behind it till he pulled out Aizawa's spare sleeping bag, and with a hissed yes, cocooned himself in it and collapsed onto the couch asleep. Oh my god, someone whispered. Does Aizawa have a kid? The perpetrator of the comment was promptly smacked in the back of their head with a capture weapon. When Midoriya awoke after his nap, he felt odd. Warm, and with a comforting weight pressed against him, he had slept well. It almost felt as if several small animals were sleeping on his lap. He slowly opened his eyes, and then immediately froze up at the sight that greeted him. Hey, Aizawa? Yeah, kid? Why are the pro-heroes Midnight and Present Mike sprawled across our laps like a bunch of cats? 𝐻𝐸𝐬 snorted in amusement. Because I fed them once, and they followed me home. Haven't been able to get rid of them since. Awa 𝐻𝐸𝐬, I knew you cared. Present Mike yawned as he stretched and woke up. Now who are you, little listener? Aizawa's secret child. As Izuku sputtered incoherently at the voice hero's question, he noticed the rather long legs in his lap belonged to the R18 hero Midnight, and promptly blushed so red he quit stuttering. Leave the kid alone, Bastion calls out amusedly, drawing Midoriya's attention to him. Welcome, he spreads his arms wide, gesturing to the building with pride. To the national headquarters for underground heroes. Midoriya slowly took in the battered rec room he was familiar with, filled to the brim with strangers in hero suits, and his eyes shined in amazement. In the corner there you have the Three Stooges, Double Tap, Chameleon, and Pathfinder. Yasai begins the introductions. We prefer the Three Musketeers, one of the trio, who was getting his head bandaged, called out. Healing up Pathfinder, there is Panacea, our resident medic. The hero with the healing quirk raised a hand in greeting, before turning back to the wound she was treating. Dendro here is our substance specialist. Bastion continued with a pat on the woman's shoulder. She shot a smirk at Midoriya. And of course you already know Aizawa. But the two spread across you guys like cats are Midnight and Present Mike, who aren't underground but assist us from time to time. The two in question squeezed out a sultry wink and a screeched "hi," respectively. Midoriya squeaked out a "nah, I know," as he registered just how many heroes he was in the presence of. Tsukachi here is our liaison with the police force. Bastion finishes introducing everyone. Hello Midoriya, the kind-eyed detective greets. Hey detective, long time no see. I'm glad you're doing better. You two know each other? Yosai asked with a raised eyebrow. inclining his head in the teen's direction to ask permission. And receiving a nod in return, Tsukachi answered, "I was on the team searching for his father after his disappearance, and I investigated his mom's death." "We just got back from a mission," Bastion says, glossing over the wounds that explanation brought up and explaining, "while they were all here." "A mission? Did anyone get hurt? Who'd you fight?" Midoriya asked excitedly. "No one got injured on the mission, and we took down a smuggling ring." Aizawa yawns out. "Cool. What were they smuggling? Quirks? But how can you smuggle a quirk? They're tied to people all." The mood got somber for a minute before Midoriya asked another question. "Wait, if no one got injured, then what happened to him?" Pathfinder looked up at the question, wincing as the movement pulled on his cut. "Well, you see, he was vanquished by his greatest foe, 𝗵𝗲𝗵𝗆. A real tough villain, sturdy as concrete and immovable as a rock," 𝐀𝐦 continued. "A sneak attack caught our valiant hero by surprise, but he fended off his nemesis, escaping with but a scratch. 𝗵𝗲𝗵𝗆 finishes." "Awa, guys, you make me sound so cool," Pathfinder coos. He tripped and fell on a curb outside the building. Dendro's voice cut through the trio's shenanigans, and Pathfinder's face fell as Midoriya burst out laughing. "Oh yeah," the teen thinks, "I'll fit in here just fine." And just like that, Midoriya's makeshift family tripled in size. Izuku's schedule changed after that. Now that it was summer, he could spend more time at the dojo. And the heroes that frequented it seemed determined to drill as much instruction into him as he could take while he was here. The so-dubbed Three Musketeers of Pathfinder, 𝗵𝗲𝗵𝗆, and 𝐀𝐭 were the most enthusiastic to have an impressionable mind to sway, but everyone chipped in. Mornings were filled with his usual routines of sparring and strengthening his body, with Aizawa and Yasai imparting lessons on tactics all the while the afternoons were occupied by the other heroes, who were late risers to a man. Probably because they spent their nights patrolling, which would also explain why he had never seen them in the dojo before. Dendro taught him how to hack, her quirk, secretion of toxins and chemicals, not having much use for him, although she did have several riveting discussions on the uses of paralytics in combat with the teen. Proxima reviewed techniques rescue heroes used to determine the most need of victims in emergency situations, which her radar quirk was helpful for, as well as fixing the deplorable state that was Midoriya's cooking expertise in the communal kitchen. Pathfinder taught him to parkour, something that Midoriya took to like a duck on water, having great fun flying over rooftops and obstacles, even keeping up with the excitable pro, while Pathfinder had his quirk active, all the while studying the man's quirk, the ability to know the shortest path between 2 points, which enabled him to move quickly, but also led to a no-frills brutal fighting style that Aizawa had taught him and Midoriya was quickly picking up. 𝐀𝐭 taught him how to move stealthily, as well as how to both spot someone tailing him and lose them quickly. He taught the teen silent takedowns, and the quickest way to knock an opponent out sneakily. And he also used his quirk to play a variety of quirks on Izuku and the other heroes. Panacea taught him battle first aid, her quirk insanely similar to Recovery Girl's, but instead of drawing on the patient's vitality, it draws on their pain, which is why she sticks mostly to healing heroes who can handle it. 𝗵𝗲𝗵𝗆 teaches him how to throw things, as juvenile as that sounds. The hero's quirk was simple, but effectively applied. He could double the force of any thrown object. An array of knives and various paralytic darts arranged on his form at all times, and he taught Midoriya how to throw all of them. Izuku sucked at first. He was an abysmal aimer, but 𝗵𝗲𝗵𝗆 drilled him over and over again on knives till he grew better, slowly. The hero also had the teen learn to effectively throw less conventional things such as books, water balloons, and thumbtacks. Present Mike tutored him in English oddly enough. The hero was passionate about it, and seeing how Midoriya was a dab hand at the language, dragged him to a number of Shakespeare's plays in the language. The voice hero also instructed the teen on rapid memorization, given how it is useful in hero work. Midnight decided she would teach him to flirt. As horrified and mortified as he was at that, and despite the rampant blushing he experienced, he couldn't argue her reasoning. "You're going to need to be able to talk to people," she explains as he squawks alarmingly at her suggestion. "You can't stay as nervous as you are and be a hero. And you especially can't freeze up around women." But Midoriya was grasping at straws now. "Maybe I won't need to talk to women." Midnight gave him a pitying look that said, "Oh honey," and simply gestured to his well-toned body, causing him to blush even more. Tick, 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 went the clock. Of course, it wasn't an actual clock, more of a mental one, counting down the days till the UA entrance exam. Tick, tick. Time ticks away and his 17th birthday nears, and he feels edgy, unfulfilled, something in him yearning for more as he enters the dojo every day. He hasn't enjoyed his birthday, not since his dad disappeared on it and his mom died that month, which is why he makes no big deal of it and tells no one at headquarters. The swords on the wall catch his eyes, as they always do as he enters on the day of his birth. But the thudding of knives into the wall draws his attention away. "You know," he says as he slings his bag onto the couch, plopping down next to a very bored 𝗵𝗲𝗡. "𝐽𝐽 is gonna kill you if he catches you putting holes in his walls again." "He's not gonna find out," the hero says with a shrug, getting up to retrieve his knives from where they're embedded in the padded walls. "Besides, I'm not scared of him." Sitting back down, he begins the repetitive task of throwing his knives before offering one to Midoriya. "Want to go?" "No thanks," the teen snorted. "I choose life. Besides, I need to find Aizawa." Speaking of which, the teen looks over Double's shoulder. "Hey Bastion, where's Aizawa?" 𝗵𝗲𝗡 yelps and jumps into the air, frantically trying to hide the knives in his hand and in the wall from his boss behind him, only to see no one there. He turns incredulously to find Midoriya crying on the ground, laughter bubbling out of him as he chokes out, "Your yelp. Oh my god, I'm dying, that was so funny." "You little whelp," Double growls out good-naturedly. "Bastion wasn't even." "I wasn't even what?" 𝗵𝗲𝗡. Bastion interrupts from behind him, causing an even higher-pitched yelp of surprise from the pro as he turned to see a stoic Bastion and smirking Aizawa. "Fucking hell." Language. Ignoring the childish pro recovering from his successive heart attacks, Bastion turns to Midoriya. "I've got a treat for you today. We've seen how you've been eyeing those swords." He gestures to the armory on the wall. "Aizawa and I decided it was time to start you on bladed weapons." A trill of excitement shot through Midoriya as he bounced over to where Bastion was setting down a bundled-up blanket. "What are we going to do?" he asks excitedly. "I am proficient in several forms of swordsmanship," Bastion says in reply, as Aizawa goes to sit on the couch with a sheepish 𝗵𝗲𝗡. "I thought I would let you choose what form you wish." The pro unrolled the blanket, revealing a katana, a do, and a longsword. The thundering in Izuku's head got louder as he reached out over the swords, his hand oddly drawn to the longsword as the ringing of steel got deafening. Everything seemed to slow down as his fingers caressed the wire-wrapped hilt, as if every eye in the world was focused on this single point in time and space. His hand wrapped around the sword, and he picked it up, and it's as if everything went back to normal. The only thing that was different was the thrumming of rightness in his core, like a tuning fork pressed to his spine. "Let's begin with the stance," 𝐽𝐽 instructs, making his way over to Midoriya to correct him before rearing back in surprise. "You've never held a sword before," he states curiously. "Never," Izuku agrees. "Your stance is perfect, and your grip is great too," Bastion says, giving him an odd look. Picking up a sword of his own, he says, "Let's have a spar to see where we stand." Nearly quicker than Midoriya can see, the older hero lunges forward, sword shining brightly as he swings it. The sound of steel on steel and the thundering of blows that have been growing ever louder in his head cut off as 𝐽𝐽 lunges, and is replaced with a thought or instinct in the back of his mind. Block. His sword raises seemingly of its own accord and meets Bastion's midair, much to their surprise, and Midoriya shifts into a stance that feels intimately familiar. A feral grin appears on his face as he pushes the hero back and swings in retaliation. He flows through a series of forms, countering Bastion's attacks and assaulting his defenses in a jerky fashion as his mind seemingly calls out instructions. It feels as if he's dancing or flying as he soars through attacks, the voice calling out with every move, and he can't help but laugh. Duck, pivot, parry, parry, block, riposte, hue, parry, swing, swing, swing. And as suddenly as it started, everything cuts off. His head is silent for the first time in a while, and as he comes back to himself, he notices his sword pressed against Bastion's throat, a tiny line of red appearing where his sword had scratched his mentor. Aizawa is standing, quirk activated and hair flying as he approaches Midoriya, taking the sword out of his slack hand and releasing his hold on the teen's quirk. The sounds in his head return, but subdued, hiding in the back where he can barely hear them. Bastion steps back, rubbing his throat reflexively as he lets out a chuckle. "Maybe next time we'll practice with dull swords." Midoriya falls to his knees. What happened?" "You lost control of your quirk," Aizawa replies, helping the teen up and guiding him to the couch as Double places some tea in his hands. It's not unusual for first-time users. Yours was just a tad dangerous. You're lucky I was here or Bastion might not have a head. And I'm rather fond of my head too, 𝐻𝐸 jokes as he walks up, patting Izuku's shoulder comfortingly. That's one hell of a quirk you've got there, kid. My quirk, it came. The teen had never looked so vulnerable to the heroes, tears welling in his eyes as he asked for assurance. Yeah, kid, it did. The three heroes awkwardly held him as he cried tears of happiness, quickly turning to hiccups and laughter at the realization that he finally had his quirk. It was finally here. They spent the rest of the day testing it, luckily with no further mishaps, and categorized it as a weapon mastery quirk with a mental component. He had an innate mastery of European swords and the commentary in his head to help him fight, like a step above enhanced reflexes. With time that will go away, Aizawa explains. He had known someone with a weapon quirk long ago. It'll only show up in times of great stress or danger. The rest of the time it will feel like normal instincts. They decided to call it Swordmaster, and Midoriya quickly started a new notebook to hold all the information. We'll have to train you harder now, Bastion warns. We can't have you losing control like that again. His good mood not even slightly dampened by the warning. He bounces around the dojo picking up his stuff. I'll see you later, guys, Midoriya says with a smile and a wave as pushes the door open to leave. I have to share the news with someone. He made his way through the city as the sun began to set, the horizon mottled with oranges and reds that made the sky beautiful. He came upon a cliff and sat down on a bench near the edge. Hey Mom, he says as he places the flowers he picked up on her grave. You'll never guess what happened today. Drip, drip, drip. Each droplet that fell from the hilt of his sword and splattered red on the floor beneath him sounded like a gunshot to his ears. The sound of battle echoed faintly in the back of his mind as he faced his three opponents. Drip, drip, drip. At some unspoken signal, two of his opponents charged him, while one held back to assault him from afar. He fended off the attacker with a staff, the wood clacking against his sword as he danced away from the blow of his other attacker. His blade darted forward, glistening in the light as it left splashes of red on the attacker's arms, rendering them useless. Undeterred, the attacker threw a flurry of kicks at him, before Midoriya sliced the other's staff in half and slammed an elbow into the kicker's head, knocking him out in one smooth movement. Lunging forward, he avoided the staff wielder's strike and swept past the knife thrower's guard, sweeping his legs out from under him, and then throwing himself into a clumsy roll to dodge his attacker's attempt to grapple. Another swipe of his sword left a gash of red dripping down the other man's chest, sending him to the ground hard. The knife thrower abandoned his projectiles and closed with Midoriya in a flurry of blows. Deflected by a knife, his sword is sent spinning away from him, and Izuku reverts to his martial arts training. A series of armbars and chokeholds are shrugged off by the final opponent. But Midoriya's superior strength wins out, sending them to the ground in a tangle of limbs. Before Midoriya can finalize his takedown, the attacker reverses his hold and Midoriya is driven to the ground. His arms held back in a hold, he can't escape without breaking them. That's enough, Bastion calls, ending the spar before they get hurt. Dendro, give the other two the antidote to your quirk. As the heroine moves to follow Yasai's order, Double Tap releases Midoriya. You did well, kid, Double Tap says with a grin, helping the green-haired teen to his feet. You almost had me with that last one. Izuku moved over to retrieve his sword, wiping the red paralytics off of the blade with an old rag as he replied, I need to work on my takedowns. We've been focusing so much on my quirk lately that I've gotten sloppy. Gesturing at the splashes of red and Double's sluggish movements, he continued, You should get that taken care of. I need to catch my breath. The hero with the secretion quirk administered the antidote to Pathfinder and was working on reviving 𝐀𝐬. Dendro, Pathfinder whined. Why does your gooey stuff stain my shirt? Okay, 1. Never say that again, she said, a look of disgust on her face. 2. I told you to wear something that could get ruined. My paralytic stain. Chuckling at their antics, Yasai wandered over to Midoriya, who was catching his breath after the fight. Your last takedown was sloppy, and you left too many openings with Pathfinder, Bastion told Midoriya as he ruffled the teen's hair. But you did well. Go through your routine and go hit the showers. The teen nodded his assent and went to the corner, putting in some headphones with his fight playlist on, and began running through every move he had with the sword. The practice he got in with his routine and sparring with the others had helped him rein in his instincts. He mainly was paired with the three musketeers of Double Tap, 𝐀𝐬, and Pathfinder, Aizawa, Mimiri, and Hisashi having left on some year-long mission that no one would tell him about, even though they still showed up on occasional weekends, and their support helped him grow into his quirk. No longer did he lose himself in a fight. His quirk's shouted instructions relegated to the back of his mind with the ever-present clashing of swords and shields. It had been 6 months since he gained his quirk, and his formerly jerky and halting blows have smoothed out into powerful and graceful strikes as his muscles have caught up with the knowledge his quirk gave him. Dendro approached Yosai, the pair watching the young man as he went through his routine, each move flowing together like a dance. "Don't you think you're being a little harsh on the kid?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. "He's already at the level of most minor heroes combat-wise, and he hasn't even started in a hero course yet." Bastian let out a snort and chuckled. "I know that, but don't let him know that, or he might get a big bead." He was silent for a moment as if pondering his answer. "There's a storm coming. You've heard the same rumors I have," he said gravely. "Villains are moving through the underground in numbers they haven't since All Might's rise. They're unionizing, and it has me worried. I want him to be prepared for what's to come." It had been 6 months since he gained his quirk, and his formerly jerky and halting blows have smoothed out into powerful and graceful strikes as his muscles have caught up with his quirk. Aizawa, Mimiri, and Hisashi left on some year-long mission that no one would tell him about, even though they still showed up on occasional weekends. Midoriya cut through the dingy tunnel that held the fastest route from the dojo to school. He was itching to write down his observations from the debut of Mount Lady that he had witnessed, along with the actions of Kamui Woods. He arrived, darted around the loud explosions of Kaken and the teacher's half-hearted admonishments, opened his notebook and tunes out the rabble. The class passed in a blur of muttering and analysis, as engrossed as he was in his new observations being written down in his notebook. Hero analysis for the future. No. 13. He didn't notice the teacher asking him a question until the class went silent. "Huh?" he asked so very eloquently. "I asked, Midoriya." The teacher scowled. "Aren't you applying for you, as well?" "I am," he replied confidently, ignoring the crackles coming from Bakuga's hands and the murderous glare on his former friend's face. The class burst out laughing, as if he could get in without a quirk. "Yeah, weak, worthless Deku will probably try to outcry the other candidates." The teacher managed to rein in their students, and Midoriya kept his head down as class finished up. He tried to quickly pack up to avoid the coming confrontation, but was too slow as a hand slammed onto his desk, singeing it. "Deku." Bakugo spit out the nickname like it was a curse. "I the only one from this shitty school who's going to you. So you better not even think about applying." "It's my dream, Kaken," Midoriya replied calmly, not betraying the nervousness he still felt in the face of his childhood tormentor. "I won't give up on it." "What's this?" One of the goons snatched up his notebook and tossed it to Bakugo. "Hero analysis for the future." Bakugo activated his quirk on it, charring the pages and mangling the cover. "What a joke. You'll never become a hero, Deku. You'll stay a worthless shit forever." With a smug grin, he tossed the notebook out of an open window, and Midoriya heard an audible splash as it landed in the koi pond 3 stories below. "You should give up," Bakugo growled, stalking towards the exit. As his eyes teared up involuntarily, Izuku heard one of the lackeys sneer. "Gonna cry? Gonna go see your dead mommy who is just as worthless as you, too ashamed to stay alive for her son?" Izuku flinched at the barbed comment and the sound of an imminent explosion, but the blow never came. Instead, he opened his eyes to see Bakugo holding his henchman against the wall, hand around his throat. "I don't give a fuck what you say to this shit nerd," he growled at his quaking classmate. "But you leave Auntie Inko's name out of your fucking mouth." Letting the teen sink to the floor, he turned to Midoriya. "If you really want to be a hero, you should follow that notebook and jump out the window. Maybe you'll get a quirk in your next life." Izuku's blood ran cold. Kaken's abuse had been intense over the years, mostly beatings and insults. But the explosive blonde had never gone this far. "You can't go around telling people to kill themselves," the teen thought. "What if I really jumped? What would you do then?" He couldn't be a hero then, no matter how impressive a quirk he has. As Katsuki and his lackeys began to exit the room, an idea struck Izuku. "Maybe you're right," he calls, picking up his backpack and turning towards the window. "I think I will jump." Exclamations of surprise welled up behind him as he darted for the open window, and the last thought he had before he defenestrated himself was, "Thank God for Pathfinder's Parker lessons." He bounced off the tree and slid his way down. landing in a roll and springing to his feet in one smooth motion, grabbing his notebook from the pond and sprinting off as a screech of "Deku" rang out behind him. After about a mile, he slowed down to a jog, shaking out his notebook and huffing a laugh as he thought of his stunt. The motions of the laugh drew his attention to some pain in his side, and he lifted his shirt as he passed through the tunnel shortcut. Giving a short nod to two middle school girls taking the same shortcut, he stepped off the path to check his wounds. "Shit," he hissed out, taking in the sticks and twigs embedded into his side. They weren't very deep and wouldn't need stitches, but he'd wait till he got to the dojo so he wouldn't bleed everywhere. Preoccupied with his injuries, he didn't notice the manhole he walked over rattle slightly. He didn't hear the clashes of swords on armor at the back of his head grow louder till his instincts shouted at him. "Duck!" He threw himself to the side, just as a massive tentacle of slime crashed through the space where his head was moments before. A size large meat suit, eh? The mass of rolling slime drags itself the rest of the way out of the sewer system. Just what I need to escape that oaf. Midoriya dodges again as more tendrils come flying toward him. "Hold still, kid. Let me borrow your body. You won't be able to protest in a minute anyway." A villain, Midoriya thinks frantically, quickly going over his options. I can't escape the tunnel. That would just leave those girls to his mercy, and the main roads where all the students and pedestrians are. He dodged again, this time rolling to the side and searching for a weapon to use. Tossing a glance at the schoolgirls huddled in an alcove, he shouted, "Stay back, try to escape if you can." But the girls were shaking, immobilized with fear. Ducking under another blow, he thinks to himself. He said something about being chased, so all I have to do is stay out of his reach and keep him occupied until the hero arrives. Tossing another glance at the terrified schoolgirls, he thought, I have to protect them too. Snatching up a length of pipe, he swung it through the villain's body, knocking him back a few feet but doing no damage. This is going to be difficult. Toshinori cursed as he made another wrong turn in the sewer system. Who knew a waste disposal system could be so maze-like? The villain had slipped away through an overlooked sewer grate as the number one hero tried to figure out a way to contain him, and he was rapidly running out of time. He coughed up a little blood as he entered a new tunnel, and the telltale steam and feeling of his encroaching time limit engulfed him. Muttering an English curse, he deflated and climbed out of the nearest sewer grate, garnering odd looks from passers-by. It wasn't the first time he'd had to abandon a pursuit due to his time limit, and it wouldn't be the last. But the feeling of failure never got easier to weather. Pulling out his phone, he started dialing Tsukachi's number to inform him of the villain's escape, when at the edge of his hearing he heard shouting and a commotion down an underpass. Amongst it all, he recognized the villain's voice from earlier. Heart sinking, because he couldn't do anything to help, Toshinori frantically looked around for a hero to alert, his feet slowly drawing him towards the commotion. He found none, and as he neared the entrance of the tunnel, he was taken aback by the spectacle at hand. The villain was growing increasingly frustrated as he tried to catch a student who was doing an admirable job of staying out of the villain's reach, as well as keeping him away from several schoolgirls who were huddled in a corner. He was an odd teenager, tall, thin, and dwarfed in a massive jacket. His messy green hair was flying haphazardly as he dodged the villain's swings, a grim look upon his face. Toshinori was taken aback by the drive visible in the young man's actions, his movements smooth but powerful, and determination burning through his eyes. His shame at not being able to help was swelling to new heights, and he was startled out of his stupor by the villain's screech. Enough! The slime welled inwards, drawing all of its tendrils back to the main body. If I can't have your meat suit, I'll just take theirs. Time seemed to slow. The villain drew back a tendril as if winding up a punch. Fear flooded the schoolgirl's eyes as they went impossibly wider, and Midoriya moved. He darts forward, juking around the villain's base, tackling the girls to the ground, and shielding them with his own body. Midoriya knows he's not going to escape in time, and he throws his arms up to block the blow. The blow begins to fall, and Midoriya pleads with the universe. Please, I need to protect us all, I need to save us. A tingle starts on his arms, and his nose is no longer filled with the stench of sewage and refuse. Instead, a wave of mint washes over him, right as the villain's strike connects. The blow drives him down, but the death and injury he was expecting never comes. Looking up, Midoriya is astonished to see a glowing green shield and gauntlet on his arm, protecting them from the villain's attack. A tough nut to crack. The villain cries out, drawing back for another strike before he's interrupted. Texas Smash. I refuse to let these kids die due to my inaction. All Might seethes internally. Time limit be damned, I will not stand idly by while they die. In an instant, he shifts into his hero form and throws a mighty punch. The force of the air from the punch splattered the villain across the wall, and the young man breathed a sigh of relief as he fell to his knees and tried to catch his breath. Fear not, young man, for I am here. The teen nodded and rasped out, Thanks, All Might. I couldn't have avoided him much longer. Then, in an impressive double take, he screeched in surprise, All Might. You did very well, young man. All Might told him over his mutterings, scraping the remains of the villain into the soda bottles he had. That was an admirable effort. Finally catching his bearings, the green-haired teen offered up a bedraggled notebook and wheezes out, You. Autograph. Notebook, please. With a chuckle, Toshinori accepted the notebook and pen. Anything for a fan, young? Midoriya, the teen replied, having finally out the worst of his fanboying behind him. My name's Midoriya Izuku. Toshinori felt his limit creeping up, and wisps of smoke began flaking off him. Damn, I'm too far past my limit. I need to transform before I shorten my time again. I have to go now. With gritted teeth, he turns away from the teen. Thanks for your help, young Midoriya. He readied himself to jump away, pulling out a phone with an All Might case and dialing Tsukachi's number. Sit tight, the police will be here soon. Izuku and the pair of schoolgirls sat in stunned silence as the number one hero rocketed off, the villain stuffed into 2 soda bottles on the sidewalk next to them. Excuse me, mister. One of the girls tugged at his sleeve, fear still in her eyes. My friend is hyperventilating, and I can't get her to stop. Please help. Izuku turned to see her friend having a panic attack and did his best to calm her down. Hey, it's okay. Nothing can hurt you now. Can you do something for me? At her shaky nod, he continued. Can you breathe in for 5 seconds, and then out for 5 more? After several minutes of talking her through breathing exercises, and her friend fluttering nervously nearby, Midoriya heard footsteps making their way towards them. A hand on his shoulder caused him to startle, and the paramedic nudged him out of the way. You did good, kid. We've got it from here. The villain containment squad approached the bottled villain carefully, and a familiar cat-headed officer made his way to Midoriya. You're always getting into trouble, aren't you, Midoriya? In my defense, he replied to Officer Sansa, trouble usually finds me. The officer gave a wry smile, and with a shake of his head Sansa instructed, Why don't you tell me what happened here? Midoriya began telling his tale, and as Sansa took down his statement, a familiar car pulled up. Out of the corner of his eye, Izuku saw Tsukachi hand a police windbreaker to an oddly skeletal man in baggy clothes. Getting into trouble again, Midoriya? The detective asked with a smile. Ignoring Sansa's feint. That's what I said. Izuku greeted his friend. Detective Tsukachi, long time no see. We had lunch together 2 weeks ago, Midoriya. The man with the lie detector quirk retorted. Exactly my point. Shaking out a huffing laugh, Tsukachi gestured to the tall man next to him. This is my friend, an independent police consultant, Mr. Yagi. He's been tracking the villain for a while and wants to take your statement. Yagi's wild blonde hair blew in the breeze for an instant, and Izuku was struck with a feeling of familiarity. Hello, he says in a surprisingly deep voice for his frail form. My name is Yagi Toshinori. Why don't you tell me what happened? Izuku began his tale again, from when the villain first appeared, to when he kept it at bay, then shielded the girls from harm, and to the conclusion where All Might showed up. That was awfully brave, trusting your quirk to take a blow like that, Toshinori complimented, and was puzzled when the teen blushed beet red and began muttering. I, actually didn't know I could do that, Midoriya offered up with a sheepish smile. This kid, Toshinori wondered at the bravery that had to have taken, and at that moment made up his mind. I'm gonna make this kid my successor. His phone chimed, and he pulled it out to see a text from Tsukachi, telling him to wrap it up. He didn't notice the odd look Midoriya gave him at the side of his phone case. I have one last question for you, young Midoriya. Sir? Why did you do it? Do what? Why did you throw yourself into danger like that? Because it was the right thing to do. The boy looked genuinely confused at the question. There was no other choice. The determination that had been so evident in his gaze earlier made itself known again. It was of my body moved on its own. I couldn't stand idly by when someone is in danger. That's a good answer, my boy, Toshinori grinned. Many true heroes have similar stories, in times of danger or need their bodies moved on their own. spurring them forward to heroic feats. As the emaciated man in front of him monologued, a familiar glimmer appeared in his piercing blue eyes, and like constellations, several dots connected in Midoriya's mind. The baggy clothes, the hair, the phone, the determination. Like a bolt from above, the answer to why this man felt so familiar struck him. All Might. Yagi's eyes went wide, and he slapped a hand over Midoriya's mouth. Shit, I must have said that out loud. Don't say anything else, Yagi said quickly. Not here. Come with me and I'll explain. Several minutes later, after waving away Tsukachi's concerns and secreting themselves away in a private booth of a nearby cafe, steaming cups of tea in front of them, All Might began his explanation. It's a long story, and it must remain absolutely secret, young man. At Midoriya's frantic nodding, he wove his tale. 5 years ago, I got into a fight that gave me this wound. He pulled up his shirt, and the boy gasped in horror at the expansive scarring evident on the hero's chest. 5 years ago. Was that toxic chainsaw? Midoriya muttered. But that makes no sense. You did several rescue operations later that month. You really know your stuff, fanboy, Toshinori Riley replied. But no, toxic was no match for me. This fight was with an old foe and wasn't publicized. Toshinori coughed up some more blood and waved off Midoriya's concerned gestures, continuing his explanation. This wound has forced a time limit on me. I can only hold my hero form for a little over 3 hours a day. That's insane, Midoriya ponders. You're the symbol of peace, the pillar of society, and you're shackled like that? All Might gave a grim nod. You see now why this must remain secret. I do. It's just, the green-haired teen looked uncertain. Why are you telling me? Several reasons, I suppose, Toshinori explained. You figured out my identity on your own. Your determination and spirit against the villain show that you are perfect to be my chosen successor, worthy to inherit my strength and my quirk. Ah, that makes sense, Midoriya nodded, taking a sip of his tea. Then, what All Might had said registered, and his tea quickly vacated the premises of his mouth in an impressive spit take. What? Shushing him quickly, All Might explained his quirk, one for all, a sacred crystallization of power passed down from generation to generation, from his mentor to him, and now hopefully from him to Midoriya. Midoriya was shell-shocked. A quirk like that had never even been theorized before, and his analyst's brain was buzzing with possibilities. At the same time, however, he thought about everything he was learning with Bastion and Aizawa, and how busy he was with training. He looked down at his hands and pondered the new developments with his quirk, which would likely keep him busy. Is it okay if I take some time to think about this? He asked nervously. All Might looked taken aback for a second, before his expression transitioned to one of understanding. Of course, young Midoriya, this is a life-changing decision. Take all the time you need. They finished their tea and exchanged numbers before going their separate ways. Midoriya's eyes were drooping as he finally makes it to the dojo, the adrenaline of the day quickly fading. He doesn't encounter anyone as he slings his book bag into the corner, falls face first into the couch, and drifts into a nap. He awakens some indeterminate time later by someone poking his face. Hey, kid. It's Bastion, and he's nudging the teen with a pool cue. So, care to explain why you're bleeding all over my couch? Midoriya blinks the last vestiges of sleep from his eyes as he looks at his mentor groggily. It's a bit of a long story. In his room later, after explaining the day's events, minus some major secrets to Bastion, Izuku gazes at his hands in contemplation. He remembers the answer to a question he had asked Yasai long ago about his quirk. You have to focus on the feeling, and have a concrete idea of what you want to be formed. My quirk requires a strong will and a vivid imagination. Closing his eyes, he focuses on the feeling from earlier, the yearning to save, the need for protection. A hint of mint wafts around the room, coming not from his dad's jacket, but himself. He opens his eyes to see a pair of glimmering green gauntlets formed around his hands. He can feel the energy they're draining from him as he inspects them with wonder, a shimmering, near-translucent armor that is cold to the touch. He focuses, and they spread to cover his arms as well before the strain becomes too much, and they flicker out of existence. Panting from the effort that it took, he nonetheless grins happily. Oh yeah, I can work with this. Izuku's leg bounces nervously as he sits in the waiting room of the quirk specialist. The childlike illustrations on the wall always set him on edge, and he feels out of place being the only person over the age of 6 there for a quirk appointment. He sighs in relief as his name is finally called, and he is ushered into the back. Dr. 𝐀𝐦 will see you now. The familiar face of the doctor he's been coming to since he was a child comes into view. Hello, doctor. I want to talk to you about my quirk. Ah yes, Midoriya, come in. His quirk specialist gestures for the teen to sit down. Your quirk is rather unique, Swordmaster, wasn't it? Weapon mastery quirks are exceedingly rare, and it is even more unusual to see one where your parents don't have weapon quirks. The doctor seems as excited to talk about Midoriya's quirk as he always is, and Izuku is committing his explanation to memory to write down later. Of course, both your parents were orphans, so we don't know your grandparents' quirks, so it's possible it skipped a generation. Midoriya nodded, indicating that he knew all of that. Also, the mental instinct portion in addition to your mutations makes you and your quirk a real joy to study. Thanks, doctor, that makes me feel all warm inside. Midoriya snarks. Shrugging off his jacket, Izuku stands up. There's been a bit of a new development with my quirk, he explains. Do tell, the doctor said with a raised eyebrow. Midoriya took a deep breath, and a wave of mint swept the room as glowing green armor formed around him. My, the doctor said. Now that is intriguing. A wide grin split his features. Let's run some tests. Several exhausting tests, and a couple hours later, Izuku left the clinic with a tired grin and a new entry in his notebook. Quirk, Green Knight. Can form a green, aura-based, armor, shield, sword, and spear around himself, based on personal energy. Cannot use once energy is depleted. Mastery of medieval longsword. Originally believed to be quirk. Swordmaster. Note. Comes with enhanced reflexes, speed, and strength due to quirk-adjacent mutations. When using aura, the smell of mint is evident. See Midoriya Hisashi's quirk. Fire tongue, and the smell of mint evident in the smoke. Midoriya had been doing a bit of soul-searching, trying to decide if he would accept All Might, his idol's offer. He knew that accepting it would make things more difficult for him, but he had never backed down from a challenge before. Some part of him knew, at a bone-deep level, that this was an offer he could not refuse, and he would never forgive himself if he did. His phone buzzed, knocking him out of his reverie. Unknown number. If you've made your decision, come to Dagobah Beach tomorrow afternoon. Unknown number. Bring workout clothes. Midoriya Izuku. I'll be there. Smiling to himself, he laid back on his bed and put in his headphones and hit play on a song he felt was appropriate, especially one line in particular. Now let's begin. This is literally a garbage dump. Exactly. Midoriya eyes the skeletal form of his latest mentor with a gimlet stare. Why are we at the dirtiest beach I've ever been to? Have you been to many beaches? That's not the point, Izuku exclaims exasperatedly. Dagobah Beach was a disgrace to the shores of Japan. The unfortunate placement of ocean currents and its location between major metropolitan areas made the beach a literal graveyard for trash and refuse, much too much for the city to clean up. The local denizens took advantage of the mess to dump their own trash, and the garbage piled higher and higher, obscuring the view of the houses lined along the street. The stench was nearly unbearable, and the mountains of trash peeked through the houses' windows, instead of the ocean horizon. No one talked about it, just turned their head away and thought internally, I hope someone cleans up that eyesore. Which was apparently why Izuku and All Might were meeting in this literal shithole. Heroism these days is too focused on punching and defeating villains, All Might explains, eyes glittering against the setting sun. There are other acts of heroism, such as community service. Midoriya bit back his comment about the irony of All Might's statement, considering he was primarily known for punching things. This, the number one hero swept his arm towards the veritable mountains of trash, is your first act as a hero, young Midoriya. Clean up this beach and return it to its former glory, Yagi exclaims, puffing up to his hero form for emphasis. There's only a year till the U.A. entrance exam, let's get cracking. With that, the teen stripped out of his oversized jacket and began the long haul of clearing the beach. The emaciated pro watched with mild surprise, as the boy he had originally thought was as muscled as a twig, picked up a washing machine with little difficulty and walked it to the dumpster, his muscles bulging. Maybe this will be easier than I thought, Toshinori mused. The two worked out a schedule that allowed Midoriya to continue his work at the dojo, while also completing the weight training All Might had set for him. Mornings at the dojo, and after school he would clear the beach of refuse. Two swords clash together, and Midoriya springs away from Bastion's return strike. Hey Yasai? The sword-wielding teen asks, parrying one of 𝗪𝗲𝗧𝗔𝗂𝘃's thrown pencils. I know Aizawa is on assignment, but is there any way that I can practice sword fighting without my quirk? Bastien hummed as he considered the request. Advancing on Izuku in a whirlwind of steel. Quirk suppressants are expensive and hard to come by unless you're the police. Give me a week or so, and I'll come up with something. In the meantime, let's take a break, the pro says as he suddenly effortlessly parries his strike. Midoriya sits down on the couch next to 𝗪𝗲𝗧 and sighs in relief when other man hands him a water bottle. Bastien stalks over to his office, rummaging around in his desk for something. Heads up. It was only thanks to his quick reflexes that Midoriya didn't get knocked in the head by the book Bastien sends flying his way. Looking down as it falls into his lap, he saw a very thick book on anatomy. What's this? A book my niece left lying around, Yasai calls, hip deep in a supply closet. And you should be glad she did. As you know, Bastien emerges from the office carrying a mannequin-like figure. Quirks are inherently dangerous. Even one like mine that are primarily defensive can kill if I'm careless. Yours, Izuku's mentor brushes through the now solemn atmosphere, is especially dangerous, due to it revolving around a deadly weapon. So, Midoriya asks curiously, wondering where his teacher is going with this. So we're going to be studying anatomy, Bastien replies, before 𝗪𝗲𝗧 adds on. So you can learn where to stab and cut someone to take them down, and not kill them. I had to learn as well, Double answers Midoriya's inquisitive look with a shrug. What with my quirk being so useful with knives and all. We'll be practicing on this. Bastien removes the covering on the mannequin, revealing a training dummy. 𝗪𝗲𝗧 interjects, apprehensive. Not to break up the somber mood or anything, but why does the dummy that you're going to be stabbing have my face on it? Oh, I don't know, 𝗪𝗲𝗧 replies with an evil grin. Why are there holes in my wall again? Ignoring the bickering of the two pros, Midoriya flipped to the front cover of the book. Inked there in an elegant scrawl were the words, Property of 𝐬𝐬. 𝐬𝐬, huh? That is an interesting name. You're progressing much faster than I thought you would, Toshinori remarks suddenly, startling the green-haired teen from where he is casually squatting a refrigerator, almost causing Midoriya to drop it on his toes. Don't startle me when I'm carrying stuff, Midoriya complains. You're very stealthy considering how loud you are as a hero, you know that, right? You're gaining muscle well, All Might continues, ignoring his protege. And you've gotten a lot cleared for 3 months of work. Yeah, Midoriya explains, tossing the fridge into the nearby dumpster. I figure I'm about halfway done. There are only 9 months till the entrance exam, and I figured I'd need time to get used to your quirk, and that's why you started me when you did. Exactly, Toshinori nods sagely, internally abashed. I totally didn't think of that. Be that as it may, the deflated hero hedges. Be careful of pushing yourself too hard. I've known plenty of pros who have burnt themselves out by working harder, not smarter. Ignoring Izuku's pointed glance at his wounded side, Toshinori points to the wrecks of some cars and continues. How are you handling the larger pieces? Stretching languidly, and letting the spectral gauntlets fade from his arms, Midoriya explains. They're too heavy for me to lift as they are, but I've figured out I can do this. Approaching one of the rusted-out cars, he forms his sword in his hand, the smell of mint eclipsing the odors of sea and trash. Drawing back his arms, he swings downwards like he is chopping wood and cleaves right through the hood, embedding his sword in the engine block. Swinging again and again, he slices the car into 4 pieces, each much easier to carry than a full car. Impressive. It's getting easier to hold my armor and weapons, Izuku explains, wiping the sweat from his forehead. I try to hold them for as long as I can while working, and the gloves help with the sharp edges. You're doing very well, young Midoriya, All Might says, puffing up into his hero form. I'm impressed. You'll be ready for one for all in no time. Thanks, All Might, the green-haired young man grins tiredly. I won't let you down. 39, 40, 41. I've figured out a solution for your request, kid. Bastien's voice cuts through the sound of Midoriya counting out his pull-ups. 42, releasing the bar and dropping to the ground. Midoriya quickly unstraps the weights tied to his ankle. You have an idea on how to practice without my quirk? The green-haired teen asks excitedly. Better than an idea, Yasai counters with a grin, tossing 2 objects to him. I have what we need here. Unwrapping the objects, Izuku is confronted with 2 oddly shaped padded wristbands. What are these? Quirk-suppressing bands, Bastien supplies. Medical grade. It is not police issue, so you don't have to worry about them being uncomfortable handcuffs. Where did you get them? My niece has a creation quirk. Midoriya perks up with the mention of a rare type of quirk. But 𝐻𝐸 continues. When she was younger, she would accidentally create things in her sleep before she had full control of her quirk. This led to some minor injuries, and her parents were wealthy enough to get her these. She was kind enough to lend them to me when I asked. The same niece who had the anatomy book. Bastian nods and gestures to the cuffs. Go ahead, put them on. Feeling strangely apprehensive, Midoriya slips on the wristbands, cinching them down and wincing as they bite into his skin. For the first time in a long time, his head is quiet. No racket from sword fights ringing in his ears. None of the clamor of his instincts shouting him, nothing. Just silence. You good kid? He must have had an odd expression on his face. But Midoriya nods. Yeah, just weird. Can you fight? Midoriya nods again, and Bastian tosses a sword to him. Very well. The pro hero picks up his own weapon and slashes at the teen. Defend yourself, apparently. While muscle memory certainly helped with the individual moves, none of the elegance that was evident when Midoriya used his quirk came through. It's like I can't string any moves together, Midoriya complains, sore from all the bruises Bastian's blunted sword left on him. Chin up, Izuku, his teacher implores. You've got a good base, and now I get to teach you the way I should have at the beginning. Now stand up, 𝐻𝐸 implores. Are you going to let this hold you back? Suppressing a groan, Midoriya picks up his sword and faces his mentor, steel in his gaze and his hand. Never. A tall figure stalks the stacks, ghostly green armor illuminating his way. He is carrying a TV and thinking idly. Midoriya knew he wasn't the only one who frequented Dagobah Beach. There were signs of other people, footsteps where he left none, trash moved by hands, not wind or shifting sand. But he figured that only scavengers or weirdos would voluntarily go into the heaps of garbage. Wait, what does that say about me? Shaking his head amusedly at the thought, he turns the corner and is surprised at the sight of a pink-haired blur right in his face. The girl registers him at the same time he sees her, and with a panicked yelp, swings the metal pipe she was carrying at his head. Izuku is so stunned at the sight of this grease-covered pink-haired gremlin that he doesn't process her actions until the pipe clangs against his helmet. His training and instincts take over, and he quickly disarms his attacker and holds her against the wall by her shirt. Please don't hurt me, Mr. Ghost King, she babbles, panicky. What? Midoriya releases his helmet and looks into the peculiar crosshair eyes of the girl. Ghost King, what the hell are you talking about? You know, Lord of the Rings. Ghostly armor, way of the dead, we do not suffer the living, she mimics gruffly. She was certainly saying words, but none of them really register as sentences in his brain. Izuku sighs. If I let you down, are you going to hit me again? Nope, she chirped happily. You just startled me, and I'm a tad scared of ghosts. Lowering her to the ground and releasing her shirt, Midoriya assures her. I'm certainly no ghost. Ooh, she coos, ignoring his statement as she comes close and begins touching and knocking on his armor. Is this your quirk? Are you a hero? If it isn't your quirk, is it support tech? Are you using hard light or a force field? If you're using hard light, what are you using for a limiter? I've been trying for years, but I can't get mine to work. What are you doing here? Wait. Her eyes flick to the dropped TV and back to his face. You, she shouts, jabbing a finger into his chest. You've been stealing my salvage. Blinking back his surprise at the barrage of questions, and then the accusation, Midoriya nonetheless gathers his wits and begins answering her questions. Yes, it's my quirk. No, I'm not a hero, but I'm trying to be one. It's not support tech, which covers those other questions that I didn't understand. I'm here training by removing the trash, eyeing her warily he finishes. And this is a public beach, no one owns this junk. You're trying to be a hero, her crosshair eyes lit up. Are you going to you, eh? I'm aiming for it, Izuku answered. Why? The grease-covered girl puffed up her chest and stood up straight, declaring, 'Cause I'm 𝐻𝐸𝐬, and I'm going to be the best support student at you. Eh? Nice to meet you, 𝐻𝐸𝐬, Midoriya replied, processing the info. I'm Midoriya Izuku. You should let me be your support tech, Zuku, 𝐻𝐸𝐬 eagerly implored. I'm the best around, and you'll benefit from my babies, and I'll have a test dummy. It's Izuku and, that's what I said. And, Midoriya glares at her for interrupting. I don't see why not. Sticking out his hand, the crazed girl shook it firmly, and their partnership was sealed with a greasy handshake. Izuku does a double take as what she said registers. Wait, did you say babies? Yup, 𝐻𝐡𝐚 bounces up and down, pink hair flying. My inventions are my babies. Midoriya was suddenly cognizant of the fact that he was talking to a girl. A rather pretty girl underneath the grease, grime, and ratty tank top. One who was well endowed, to say the least. Only his training with Midnight stopped him from freaking out and turning into a tomato. But a blush still graced his cheeks, so it was a close thing. So, Midoriya starts, grunting as he tugs on the ropes he's using to drag an oven with All Might sitting on top. I made a friend. That's good, young Midoriya, scrolling through his phone as his student huffs and puffs, dragging him at a brisk speed. Friendship and camaraderie are an important part of development. Yeah, well, my point was, Midoriya replies, reaching the halfway point of his run and turning around. She'll be around the beach sometimes, and it'd probably be best if you didn't come in your hero form. Young Midoriya, this is a path that requires near-complete focus. There can be no. All Might seems to blush slightly, clearing his throat. Distractions. Izuku looks at his mentor blankly before what he was trying to say registered. Whoa. Nope, nothing like that is happening. Midoriya's face lights up brighter than a Christmas tree. She's just trying for you. And I've been dragging Scrap to her workshop, a couple of blocks away, so she can practice for the support exam. That's it. Midoriya's face feels like it is on fire, and so do his legs and lungs. Is he shaking? All right, All Might replies. As long as it doesn't interfere with your training, I have nothing against it. And I'll endeavor to not show up in my hero form. Thanks, All Might, Midoriya gasps out, reaching the finish point and collapsing into a heap. Hey, kid, are you okay? When his successor only answers in a pained groan, Yagi looks closer. Your limbs are trembling, and you aren't sweating enough, Toshinori surmises accusingly. You're pushing yourself too hard. I thought I warned you about this. You're going to hurt yourself. Midoriya pants a little, slowly regaining his energy. I just have so far to go. I'm already so far behind everyone else who have years to train their quirks, and I'm training to get yours as well. Everyone is halfway done with their race, and I'm only at the starting line. There was a fire in Izuku's eyes despite his undignified position in a heap on the floor. I have to work harder, and be better to work my way to the top so I can save everyone. Toshinori let out a sigh and a chuckle at the boy's attitude. I suppose I did choose him partially for his determination. Still, he stresses, you will do more harm than good like this. Appraising his successor's form, noting the muscles that were significantly bulkier than they were several months ago bulging against his shirt, Yagi makes a decision. Take a week off. Talking over Midoriya's protests, he continues. No beach workouts, nothing overly strenuous. No more than what you were doing before we started this. Yes, you can practice your quirk. He forestalls the coming question. Go hang out with your new friend. Go see a movie, start a rebellion, or whatever else kids your age do. Smiling at the laugh and blinding smile that draws out of Midoriya, he thinks, too bright, and ruffles his long green hair. You gotta take care of yourself, kid. Toshinori reclines back against the sand. You'll get there soon enough. Come on, there has to be something you need for support gear, 𝐻𝐡𝐚 whined, begging Midoriya for input. The pink-haired inventor had been pestering the muscular hero in training for weeks about letting her make something for his hero suit. Your costume is already so plain, I could make it in an hour. You gotta give me something. I've already explained that my armor covers most things, and I can create the weapons I need with my quirk. Midoriya exclaims exasperatedly. I don't know what else I could need. Turning away so he can ignore the pouting look on her face that he couldn't say no to. The future one for all holder opens his most recent notebook to the page on himself, showing his quirk brief and ideas for a costume that was rather simplistic. Not finding anything that struck him with inspiration there, Izuku begins flipping through the other heroes he has notes for, searching for ideas. Ignoring the crashing and clanging of Mei testing her unfinished grappling gun, yet again, Midoriya is struck with inspiration. Collapsible sword, he writes. Just in case I'm in a situation where I can't use my quirk. Communication unit speech-to-text note taker, he pencils in next to his drawn helmet. So I can analyze on the fly. Steel-soled boots, he completes. In my usual red style. Yeah, that should give her something to work with. After checking his notebook to make sure that there were no incriminating secrets, such as All Might's identity, Izuku tosses it to 𝐻𝐡𝐚. Go wild, he calls as leans back for a nap. Thanks, Zuko, she chirps as he puts his headphones in. Hopefully she won't build anything too wild, he thinks as he doses off. All Might did say I could practice my quirk right. Izuku muses as he hops down onto the beach at 𝗣𝗲𝗄, the ground being significantly clearer than it had been, just the big pieces remaining, including a rather interesting formation of cars and large appliances that were the products of a half-formed idea near the ocean's edge. I should practice with my spear, he thinks, chuckling as he remembered when he had first formed it in the doctor's office, almost too big for the small exam room, much to his and the doctor's surprise. He hadn't used it since. As he had researched afterward, the spear he could form was in actuality a lance, a spear that was primarily used on horseback by knights, and was used mainly for thrusting and stabbing because it was too heavy to throw. Forming it in his hands, Midoriya marveled at the weight of it and the razor sharpness of its head. He needs a ranged attack, despite it not normally being thrown. Ignoring everything he had read, Izuku channels his inner double tap, and drawing back his arm he threw it, aiming for the center of a nearby car door. It went wide, very wide. Going by how difficult it was to throw, he was going to need practice. Taking a closer look at how badly he missed, Izuku grimaces. Lots of practice. Hatsum, I'm so bored. Izuku groans from his position upside down on the ratty couch of the inventor's workshop. Then go grab me some more scrap from the beach, the pink-haired girl called from her workbench, not turning around as she focused on assembling some delicate parts. Do you need anything in particular? The green-haired teen asks. No. Then no, I won't. Mei berates playfully, before sticking her tongue out in concentration as she leaned closer to the part she was working on, laser-focused as she cracks open the circuit board. Getting up, Midoriya walls over and flops onto the workbench next to his friend, jostling it slightly. Still not looking up, Hatsum growls. If you make me mess up my soldering, no one will find your body. Gulping in slight fear, Izuku backs away. Why don't you go practice your swordsmanship? Mei asks him, fed up with his antsy puttering around the workshop while she tried to focus. Because, not to sound arrogant or anything, but I'm good enough for my trainer to not hold any challenge, and that's even more boring. When his pink-haired friend replies with a noncommittal grunt, Midoriya rolls his eyes and grabs his jacket. I'm going to go haul some more trash, he calls, ducking out the door. Text me when you get home safe, Hatsum calls after him, receiving an affirmative shout in return. Needs a challenge with a sword, huh? Mei mutters to herself as she puts down her latest invention, designs already flowing through her overactive brain. I always did like a challenge. Hatsum, what the hell is that? It's my newest baby. His friend's voice only sounded that crazed when she was on a several-day engineering bender with no sleep, and the bags under her eyes corroborated that fact. When she had called him an hour earlier, the only thing he could discern outside of her rapid-paced screeching were the words, "Solution to your problem," and 𝗣𝗲𝗄 beach, 1 hour. The brilliant pink-haired inventor was fiddling with what appeared to be a metal suitcase on the ground, connecting several wires and typing something into a screen. When was the last time you slept, Mei? Midoriya asks with a sigh. I napped while he was watching the sword-fighting movies. She bounded up and set the suitcase down at his feet, a glowing blue button sitting in the middle of it. Before he could ask any questions about Hatsum's use of the word, him, the hyperactive girl slapped the button and Midoriya watched in awe as a machine folds out of the suitcase. It looks vaguely like General Grievous and the Terminator had a baby, and that baby was made out of toaster parts and thin tubing. It is oddly spindly looking, the only bulk coming from the circuitry in its chest plates, the servos on its arms, and the camera in its eye. It is shorter than Midoriya, yet taller than Mei, and its single eye glowed a pleasing blue. It's a rather thoroughly horrific, unrelenting robot, or Arthur for short, Hatsum bubbles, tinkering at its limbs as Midoriya stands there in shock, like King Arthur. 'Cause you know, sword fighting. Do you? Izuku's brain was rapidly trying to catch up with the marvel of engineering his friend just sprung on him. Don't you think the acronym is a bit of a stretch? Nope. Mei, why am I staring at a literal robot right now? He asks, looking at the robot warily as if it could attack at any moment, which given the acronym, and that it is made by Hatsum, was a relevant worry. I made it for you to spar against, she answers brightly, shutting one last panel on its back and moving next to him. It can fight? Only sword fight, nothing martial artsy, she explained. And he learns as he fights, so you'll never get bored again. You made this 'cause I was bored, he looks at her in wonder. He had never had a friend that had done so much for him. Thanks, Mei, he says with a soft smile. This means a lot. Turning away to hide her slight blush at his earnestness, 𝐻𝐡𝐚 continues her explanation. He's got 3 levels of difficulty, and it learns from people it fights or sees fight. So he should always be a little bit of a challenge for you. 𝐻𝐡𝐚 let out a long yawn. I've been having him watch movies with sword fights for the last 2 days, so he should have a good base. He learns? Is he an AI? Midoriya was mildly alarmed at the thought of a learning thinking killer robot. But his fears were quickly waved off by 𝐻𝐡𝐚. No, he can only take commands, she explains. He only learns through a machine learning data analysis program I wrote that only focuses on swordplay. Otherwise, he's dumber than the Siri on your phone. Mei snorts derisively. I'm shocked that that's possible. Ooh, okay. Midoriya steers her towards a nearby bench. You only start insulting phone assistants when you're exhausted. Take a nap while I test out your baby. Mei makes a grabby motion for his jacket. Midoriya hands it to her, watching amusedly as she wraps herself up in it and immediately falls asleep in its comforting warmth and faint smell of mint. Okay, Izuku says out loud, approaching Art. Her as he loosens his muscles. Let's see how you work. Pressing the only button visible, the one that turned it on does nothing, and only holding it for 10 seconds turns it off. After turning it back on, Izuku tries talking to Arthur, Facing the robot's unnerving eye, Midoriya says, Arthur, activate sparring. To his relief, the robot raises its head and begins speaking in a peppy synthetic voice. You have activated sparring routine. Mode. Plus Ultra. It's time to go beyond. Prepare for death. At its last statement, its calming blue eye turns an angry red. Never dropping its peppy tone, the gangly robot shoots out 2 blades from its arms and whirls towards Midoriya like a murderous blender. Mei! The young man yelps as a blade sparks off his hastily erected shield, the blade burying itself in a nearby car door. Shearing through the metal L, I gets nothing. Mei, how do I turn it off? When his comatose friend doesn't wake up, Izuku turns his attention back to Arthur. Cancel spar, he calls, parrying a strike on his gauntlet. But the robot only replies, command not recognized. Shit. Abort mission. Command not recognized. Deactivate sparring routine. Command not recognized. Dodging another blow that was slightly too close, he shouts in exasperation. Go the fuck to sleep. Command not recognized. 𝐻𝐡𝐚, can you please help me? Mei says nothing, only turning over in her sleep underneath his jacket, and Midoriya has to dodge another whirlwind blow from Arthur. Fuck it, Midoriya thinks, forming a sword of his own. Time to go plus ultra. 𝐻𝐡𝐚 feels up oddly rested. Looking around blearily, she notices the setting sun in the distance. Wrapping Midoriya's jacket around her shoulders to ward off the coming evening chill, she makes her way to where she last saw her friend and her invention. When she nears, she is struck still by the oddest sight. Midoriya has lounged across a makeshift throne of car parts, ever-present notebook and pencil held idly in his hand as he sketches the sunset. He has several scratches on him, and he seems unharmed, but his long hair is a tangled mess where it hangs down past his neck. At his feet is a collection of destroyed robot parts, and next to them the robot itself. The only thing left intact is its torso, one arm, and a cracked red lens on its head. Arthur is still trying to attack Midoriya, its staticky voice slowly chanting die every couple seconds as it drags itself closer to him, only to be nudged away with a tap of Izuku's foot. What's going on? Mei! Izuku's face lights up as he sees her approach. You're awake. Did you sleep well? Yeah, great, she waves him off, approaching her trashed baby. What happened? Well, he rubs the back of his head sheepishly. I couldn't figure out how to turn him off, and he wouldn't stop the spar, so I had to break him. Mei sorts through the memories of her engineering binge, and is slightly abashed when she answers him. I might have forgotten to put one in. To her relief, Midoriya starts laughing instead of getting angry. You hear that, you bucket of bolts, he chuckles at Art. You don't have an off switch. Command not recognized. Yeah, that's what I figured, he agrees, addressing 𝐻𝐡𝐚. He was great to spar with. The materials were just a little weak. He adapted really well to my fighting style though. Still slightly taken aback at the devastation to her baby, Mei shrugs it off as a learning experience and a chance to improve. I didn't use great materials, so that's to be expected. She perks up, eager for feedback. How was his coordination? He was a devil to fight against, fast, and never missed a blow. Good. I'll rebuild him better this time, she comments. New designs already being brainstormed. With an off switch this time. With an off switch, she agrees, looking at the wreckage of Arthur. Slims. And maybe modular arm replacements. Come on, she nudges him off his makeshift throne. Lug him back to the workshop for me. All right, buddy. Izuku approaches the still active robot, pressing the button on its chest. Time to go to sleep. Command not reckon. With his All Might mandated, relax and be a teenager, time fulfilled, Midoriya throws himself back into beach cleanup. Before long, just 6.5 months after he started his first heroic act, the future hero stands on a cleared horizon with pride. Taking in the now scenic view, he smiles and pulls out his phone, sending a text. Midoriya Izuku. The beach is clean. Midoriya Izuku. I'm ready when you are. Yagi Toshinori. Meet me there at dawn. Yagi Toshinori. I'm proud of you. Midoriya Izuku. When you said the beach was clean, I thought you meant all of it, Toshinori comments, slightly peeved. What's that? The beach was actually cleaned far beyond his expectations. The boy had even gone beyond the boundaries Toshinori had set, clearing the entire beach. Except for a ring of cars, stacked 4 high near the water. This he was referring to. Well, Midoriya scratched the back of his head sheepishly. That's the Thunderdome. The what? Oh sorry, that's what I've been calling it. I figured that we would need to practice my new quirk, and public quirk use is still illegal, and now that the beach is clear people are going to start coming around. So I built that arena of trash, so we can practice one for all out of sight, and not get in trouble for it. Plus, it would deter visitors. So, cutting off his Prochi's mumble spree, Toshinori laughs. That was good thinking, young Midoriya, and you make a good point. Clasping Izuku on the shoulder, he steers him towards the ring of cars. Let's get inside. Where's the entrance? Once they've made their way inside the structure, and are seated near each other, Toshinori begins to speak, seriousness evident in his tone of voice. Young Midoriya, I'm about to tell you some more information about our quirk, and I will not hold it against you if after my explanation you don't want to accept it anymore. Bewildered, nonetheless, Midoriya replies, I'm listening, All Might. I would like to tell you the story of One for All, All Might says solemnly, gaze distant over the rising sun. A story that starts with a dawn of quirks. A story that starts with a quirk that can steal quirks. His voice grows deeper as if recalling a long-forgotten memory. It's a story about 2 brothers. He's dead though, right? I dealt him a mortal blow at the same time he dealt me this one, Toshinori replies, gesturing to his side, the phantom taste of blood from that day lingering. And he vanished afterward. So you think he is, Midoriya hedges, but you're not 100% certain. Unfortunately, All Might agrees. They sit there in silence for a while, Izuku processing the new information, and Toshinori wallowing in memories. I still accept this burden, All Might, Midoriya says determinedly. I will continue the legacy of One for All and make you proud. You already have, Toshinori thinks, standing at the same time as his pupil. Very well then, young Midoriya, All Might says, puffing up into his hero form and plucking out a hair. Eat this. Huh? That was literally the grossest thing I've eaten, and I've had sludge villain in my mouth. Toshinori suppresses a shudder at his student's statement. The memory of swallowing Nana's, his mentor's, long hair, and offers up consolingly. That was probably the least gross method of transferring my DNA, which is necessary to pass on One for All. Midoriya looked even greener at the implications of that statement, but the mentor and protege settled down into a comfortable silence, watching the sun rise on the fruits of Izuku's labor. What happens now? Now we wait 2 to 3 hours, Toshinori explains, which is how long it'll take for your body to process the DNA. And then I train you till you take my place as the symbol of peace. No, I mean, Midoriya seems hesitant. What happens to you, to your power? Ah, the number 1 hero thinks for a minute before answering. One for All is like a flame, passed on from one torch to another. Now that I've passed it to you, my powers will slowly wane, along with my time limit. How long will you have left? If we're lucky, and I don't push myself, not till your 3rd year and debut as a hero, when I can announce you as my successor and retire. And if we're not lucky, Izuku asks, knowing the likelihood of Yagi not pushing himself. Then my power wanes before we're ready. I'm forced to retire and Endeavor or Best Jeanist are forced to take my place as number 1. Both have various attitude disconnects that would keep them from being a symbol, and villain activity would likely surge. The look of anger that passed over his pupil's face at the mention of Endeavor didn't escape Toshinori, and he asked about it. You don't like 𝗫𝐻𝐸, young Midoriya. I figured a hero nerd like yourself would be less put out by the thought of him. Midoriya grimaced as he begins his explanation. He doesn't have the charisma or attitude to be a true number one. He might have the drive, but he's too violent and prone to anger. It did not escape Izuku that he was also describing Bakugo. And he. Midoriya chokes out. He killed my mom. What? Toshinori bursts out, accompanied by a spray of blood. I'm sure you're familiar with the practice of combat-oriented heroes employing rescue-oriented sidekicks to clear areas so they don't have to worry about collateral damage during fights? Midoriya asks. Toshinori nods in response. I've never been partial to it myself, but I know heroes like 𝗫𝐻𝐸 and Gang Orca use it to great effect. I don't know if his sidekicks dropped the ball, if he didn't wait for them to clear the area, or if it was some combination of the two. But several years ago 𝗫𝐻𝐸 incinerated a shop during a fight that had 6 people in it. He was investigated, naturally, Midoriya's voice shook, and found that he had been negligent. So he was fined and ordered community service. I know it isn't completely his fault, but whenever I think of my mom's last moments, the fear in her eyes as a fireball rockets towards her. Tears were silently running down his face as Midoriya finishes his tale. Every time I think of her I see his face, and I just get so angry. I'm so sorry, young Midoriya. All Might pats his successor's back. I know it doesn't help, but I am truly sorry. As the young man cries, Toshinori asks hesitantly, Is it okay if I give you a hug? At Izuku's shaky nod, Toshinori wraps his pupil in a bony hug, holding him till the tears stop. I think that you being the pillar of society was a bad idea. For the second time in a short time, All Might spews blood in shock. What? Quickly backpedaling, Midoriya stutters out. Wait, I didn't mean it like that. Please explain, young Midoriya, Toshinori demands, a bit miffed at his successor's statement. Midoriya gathers his thoughts. Japan is built around you, and the idea of you bringing peace. What happens when you're gone? Toshinori opens his mouth to reply, but a raised hand stops him. You're the pillar that we've raised our society on, and you being the symbol of peace definitely isn't a bad thing. Just the way you went about it was flawed. A house built on a single pillar will come crashing down. You should have relied more on others. Spread the load out so you're not Atlas with the weight of the world on your shoulders. I know that now, Toshinori replies, but hindsight is 20/20. The next symbol can't be a single pillar. They don't have to stand alone. A solid base of support by capable heroes would be better than a single focal point. They should be a rallying point, not a lone star. You make some good points, young Midoriya. Toshinori hadn't honestly thought about his position that way, but it makes sense. Heroes are too focused on fighting and publicity, his successor continues, getting impassioned. You said it best yourself, no one does community service anymore. Heroes are for saving people, not selling merch and rankings. We have to be better than that. I just don't think the hero system can continue as it is, Midoriya finishes. They sit in silence for a moment at the weight of 𝐸𝐻𝐸's statement. Before Toshinori speaks up. Then change it. Huh. You're the start of the latest generation of a long line of heroes, All Might explains. You're next. If you're not satisfied with the status quo, if you want to be better, then be the force of change you need to be. If anyone can do it, he smiles at his successor, it'd be you. The thought of his mentor's belief in him and the idea of bettering society stirs a warm feeling in Midoriya's core. And he can't stop the happy tears welling out of his eyes. Thank you, All Might, he says earnestly. That means a lot. The welling of warmth at his core doesn't go away, and when Izuku focuses he can feel a power. It's different from the feeling of his own quirk's power, which is like a steady thrumming along his spine. This feels like a raging tempest of overflowing energy at the core of him. It dawns on Midoriya that this must be one for all. But I thought that All Might said that it would take several hours for it to come, the green-haired teen thinks, glancing at the sun in the sky only to realize that it was nearing midday. We were talking much longer than I thought. Standing up, he turns to All Might. I think I can access one for all now. His mentor makes to heave himself off of the sand and is stopped by a hand reaching out to him. I can get up on my own, you know that, right? Yagi asks with a raised eyebrow. It's not a bad thing to ask for help, Izuku says with a grin. They both know he's talking about more than a hand up from the ground. So it's without hesitation that All Might reaches out to take the proffered hand. Call me Toshinori, Midoriya, he says as he brushes the sand off of himself. You've earned it. Izuku's return smile is blinding. Okay, Izuku says, bouncing up and down, shaking out the jitters. How do you activate it? I simply let it well up within me, clench my butt cheeks, and yell. Toshinori puffs up into his hero form. Smash. Clenched butt cheeks, really? Midoriya asks with an unimpressed look. It's what works for me, Toshinori says sheepishly. Okay, let's see. Closing his eyes and searching down inside himself. Much like when he forms his armor, Midoriya reaches towards the energy that is one for all. Carefully, slowly, he draws it to the surface and directs it to his arm. He hears a gasp and opens his eyes to see his arm decorated with green and gold lightning. It felt as if his arm was containing the force of the sun, or a runaway nuclear reaction. Turning to the wall of cars that is facing the ocean, Midoriya cocks back his arm and runs through his mental checklist. One for all, received. Power, activated smash, prepped butt cheeks, clenched with a wordless shout. He throws his fist forward and punches. The wall of cars goes flying into the ocean from the force of his punch, the wind pressure pushing a furrow into the waves, revealing the sand underneath. As the final car hits the water and the waves crash back down, Izuku can only think to say one thing. Holy shit. Then the pain of his arm shattering catches up to him, and he looks down to see his arm hanging limp, bruised, purple, and mangled, and he clenches his jaw unsuccessfully to suppress a scream. Through the haze of pain, he notices Toshinori making a panicked phone call, the words "Chiyo, emergency," and "no hospitals," filtering through as Midoriya clenches his teeth and forms his armor around the broken arm as a makeshift splint. He doesn't know if he passes out or zones out, but sooner than he thinks possible, Izuku hears the sound of a car door slamming and looks up to see a wizened old lady hobbling her way towards them. What the hell did you do to the boy, Toshinori? She fusses, bonking the number one hero on the head as she passes with her syringe-shaped cane. Ignoring All Might's indignant. Oh, she approaches Midoriya. Holy shit, it's Recovery Girl, he starts muttering. The youthful healing heroine responsible for the highest rescue count this century. I would totally be freaking out if I wasn't pretty sure I'm in shock right now. That all well and good, Sonny, Recovery Girl says with a kind smile. But I need you to release your quirk so I can check out your arm. Midoriya releases his makeshift splint, and the hero hisses in sympathy. Multiple compound breaks, burst veins, fatigued muscles, and an astounding number of contusions. Looking up in surprise, she asks, how did this happen? Shooting a wary glance at Toshinori, Midoriya says nothing, careful of their shared secret. Recovery Girl catches the glance, however, and advances on Yagi. Did, bonk. You bonk, give bonk, him bonk. One for all bonk, without me here? Each word is punctuated with a strike from her cane, and Toshinori looks up sheepishly. I thought it'd be fine. I took to it fine, and he's as well built as I was. She knows, Midoriya interjects. Of course I know, Recovery Girl says. I was a school nurse when this quirkless knucklehead came through you. With a quirk. You were quirkless. I thought I told you that. All Might looks beleaguered on all sides, and Recovery Girl cuts him off. One for all is a stockpiling quirk, Toshi, and it gains power every time it's passed on. Why wouldn't it be stronger for him? The youthful heroine explains. Toshinori says sheepishly. I didn't think of that. Recovery Girl, or Chiyo, as Toshinori calls her, lets out a long-suffering sigh. Alrighty, let's get you healed up. A puckered kiss to Midoriya's forehead heals his arm, and a wave of exhaustion washes over Izuku. His broken arm straightens, the purple bruising and burst blood vessels fading away. A groan of relief escapes Midoriya's mouth. Blinking away the after-effects of pain from his now heavy eyes, Midoriya freezes at the same time as Toshinori when Chiyo levels them with a glare. You need to modulate your power, she says. Otherwise you'll keep breaking yourself. She hands him a couple of gummies and continues. Don't use one for all again today, and be careful next time. Getting up and patting Midoriya on the head, she hobbles back towards her car. I better not see you again with broken bones, she calls as killing intent washes over them. Or else. The hero and mentor watch as she shuts her car door and speeds off. Izuku breaks the silence, turning towards All Might. So she's scary. Modulate my power, Izuku mutters to himself as he sits on his bed at the dojo. How am I supposed to do that? Calling up his own quirk. He examines the pale green armor coating his arms. Maybe I can practice with Green Knight and see if it carries over. Settling into a meditative stance, Izuku closes his eyes and reaches out to the power inside him. Slowly, haltingly, he practices drawing it out at different strengths. And as he does, he can feel the armor getting stronger or weaker. All the while, he can feel the well of power that is one for all churning at his core. It seems oddly content, and somehow proud. Midoriya chalks it up to another one of the mysteries about this quirk. Pathfinder is enjoying his first night off in a long time immensely. No patrols, no fights, he's not on call. He can just get drunk and pamper himself. As he's stumbling up the stairs to one of the spare rooms at the dojo, he thinks, maybe I drank a little too much. Reaching the landing, he trundles towards his room before his attention is caught by a green glow showing out from little Midoriya's door. What the fuck? The off-duty hero thinks, stealthily nudging open the door, or as stealthily as a severely drunk pro hero can. Pathfinder is taken aback by the sight of Izuku sitting cross-legged on the bed, eyes closed and clad in spectral green armor. Looking back and forth between the obvious hallucination and the bottle of sake in his hand, Pathfinder thinks to himself, man, I cannot get this drunk again. You know, Izuku says as he whirls around Arthur. He's gotten much better since we've started sparring. Mei gives a noncommittal grunt in response as Midoriya parries blow after blow. Like, I know you repaired him and made him better. Izuku drives forward, pushing Arth. You are back from the force of his blows. But he's improved immensely. Mei doesn't look up from the laptop she's coding on from her seat in the sand. Guess he really learns from experience, huh? His pink-haired friend nods in response. You're not paying any attention to me, are you, Mei? Izuku says with a sigh, closing with the robot and hitting the spar cancel switch. At his friend's noncommittal, he starts saying outlandish things to get her attention. Mei, Arthur cut my arm off and I'm dying here, he cries dramatically to no response. I'm All Might's super secret love child, and he's adopting me now. Still, she says nothing. Me and Arthur are going to run away and elope, right Arthur? He tries one last thing. Command not recognized. See, our love is strong yet forbidden. That's nice, Zuko, Mei says absently. With a fond smile, Izuku plops down in the sand next to his friend, startling her out of her engineering trance. So what you working on? Well, she gestures to a set of fancy wrist cuffs. These are what I'm doing for my entrance exam. A set of high-density weights that are calibratable to individual wearers for training purposes. That sounds useful, Midoriya thinks, picking up one and then almost dropping it. Holy shit, that's heavy. And that thing, he asks, gesturing to the ring of metal the pink-haired inventor has plugged into her tablet she's coding furiously on. It's a surprise. Which was a mildly worrying statement considering how many things tended to blow up around Mei. But hey, what can you do? Glancing up at the setting sun, Midoriya packs away Arthur. We should get going, Mei, it's almost nighttime. I don't want to, the inventor says from her spot in the sand. I'm busy. With a sigh and a fond smile, Midoriya leans down and hoists his friend over his shoulder like she's a sack of potatoes. Aside from a mild yelp, she says nothing, and Midoriya can hear the tapping of her keyboard as he walks them down the street. Are you still working? He asks incredulously. Progress stops for no man. He turns his head to say something, and is suddenly confronted with the fact that her butt is right next to his face. And he almost accidentally planted his face in it when he turned. Blushing a vibrant red, and eternally glad she can't see his face right now, Midoriya starts up a conversation to distract himself from his friend's assets. Hey Mei, can I borrow Arthur for a couple of days? What for? I want to bring him to the dojo, and convince Yasai to let me use quirk suppression cuffs while we spar at the beach, Izuku explains. Yeah sure, just don't break him, Mei replies. They lapse into a comfortable silence, and Midoriya ignores the weird looks that they get. A tall man with a crazy pink-haired girl thrown over his shoulder is an odd sight after all. As they near Mei's house, Midoriya speaks up again. I'd be happy to help you test out and troubleshoot those high-density weights if you want, he tells Hatsune. Really? She exclaims as they reach her house, hopping down from his shoulder and giving him a quick hug. Thanks, Zuko, you're the best. He was glad he met Mei. She was his first friend in a while. This time Midoriya couldn't suppress his blush as he walked away. It was nice being hugged. It has been a long time since he last was, and he might be a tad touch-starved. Hey Yasai, Midoriya calls to get his mentor's attention. I've been sparring with someone at the same place I've been strength training. Can I borrow the quirk suppressant bands while I'm there? Bastian ponders this, as Quirk suppressants are highly regulated, but he trusts Midoriya. As long as I can meet this sparring partner of yours, then it's okay. Great! Midoriya beams with a bright smile. I'll go get him. What? Go get him? Bastian calls after his mentor with no response. How is he already here? Midoriya, that's a robot. Your powers of observation astound me, sensei. Shooting Midoriya a half-hearted glare, Bastian asks again. How are you sparring with a robot? Answer, taking a second to examine the gangly contraption. The hero asks, is it any good? Why don't you see for yourself? Midoriya replies with a slightly sadistic grin. Tossing a sword to his mentor, he says, be careful, those blades are sharp. Arthur, the teen calls, let's spar. Straightening up and focusing on Yasa, Arthur. R. says in his weirdly peppy voice. You have activated sparring routine. Mode. Plus Ultra. It's time to go beyond. Prepare for death. Did he just say death? Bastian exclaims as Arth. U. R. whirs into action, and the hero is pressed into defense, and too harried to say anything more. Okay, Bastian pants, out of breath once Art. Her is deactivated. You're insane if you fight that regularly. Sprawled out on the floor, Izuku mentor sighs. You can use the suppressing bands wherever you fight Terminator here. Thanks Yasai, you're the best, Midoriya thanks. Alright, All Might, Izuku says, facing off against the #1 hero in the arena of cars. I think I've got it figured out. After focusing on his own quirk for a while, strengthening and weakening the energy he draws, Midoriya was sure he could apply it to One for All. Okay, young Midoriya, his mentor replies, puffing up into his hero form. Hit me with it. Drawing in a deep breath, focusing on the energy inside of him, Midoriya draws it into his arm. Slowly, carefully, he draws from the boundless well of energy. Instead of an uncontrolled tsunami as it was before, it's no less powerful, just subdued. Gold and green energy crackles through his fingers and around his forehead, smaller but no less energetic than before. Okay, Midoriya says, opening and closing his sparking fist gingerly. I can work with this. Drawing back his fist, Izuku punches forward. The air pressure from his punch kicks up a plume of sand and rattled the edges of the torn-up cars. Shaking out his hand, Midoriya is pleased to note that though the punch was significantly weaker, his arm doesn't hurt. Well done, young Midoriya. Turning to his mentor, the green-haired teen exclaims, I did it, Toshinori. You did, All Might agrees. Can you move? Midoriya nods. Good. His hero puffs up into his hero form, dashing forward in a blur of motion. Then you can fight. Midoriya barely gets his armored arm up in time to block All Might's punch, and the blow still sends him flying into the cars behind him, denting them severely, only his armor protecting him from a concussion. Come on. All Might entreats, suddenly behind him. Fight. Izuku throws a One for All powered fist behind him, barely grazing his mentor's arm before the hero is gone again. You've got to be quicker than that. With a wordless shout of frustration, Midoriya transfers One for All to one of his legs, jumping high into the air awkwardly. Moving the energy to his other arm, he fires a punch down into the sand, sending it into Toshinori's eyes. With his opponent's vision obscured, Midoriya rotates his power into his leg, sending down an axe kick, crashing into the space where All Might was seconds before. Shit. I can't move my power around fast enough. A super-powered fist collides with Izuku's stomach, sending him to the ground in a heap, coughing up his breakfast. Calling a timeout, Midoriya regroups himself. How much power do you think that was? He asks the powered-down All Might. I tried to match your output, his hero replies. So I'd say you're using maybe 10% of One for All? Only 10%. You're just starting out, young Midoriya, All Might says, looking irritatingly not affected by the effort. 10% is admirable. You need to be faster though, you were too slow on your return blows. I know, that's why I called a timeout, Midoriya replies, an annoyed grimace on his face. I feel like I'm not using One for All efficiently. How are you using it? Well, Midoriya stands up and begins drawing One for All into his arm. The lighting transfers from limb or limb slowly as he moves the power around, each appendage swelling with strength as he does. But it's slow. Too slow. I'm moving it between each arm and leg, but it's taking a while, the green-haired teen says with a frown. Toshinori paces around the young man, watching as the power rotates throughout his mentee's body. That is slow. Placing his hand on his chin in the classic thinker pose, He ponders before an idea strikes. When you're lifting heavy objects, do you only use one arm? No, Midoriya replies bewilderedly. What about when you attack with a kick? All Might asks again. Do you use your hips and other leg for leverage, or is it a both-leg operation? Both legs, Izuku answers, still puzzled. But what does that have to do with, excited now, Midoriya focuses inward. And instead of drawing one for all into just one arm, he pulls it out into his entire upper body. Yagi takes in the sight of his pupil's torso and arms sparking with energy and applauds. Well done. Midoriya pushes it to his legs and hips next. And it's quicker. Much quicker than rotating it amongst his limbs. It still takes a second or two. But compared to the long drawn-out process of before, it's practically instantaneous. With a whoop of glee, Izuku throws a flurry of super-powered punches, kicking up a flurry of sand with the barrage of wind pressure. This technique, he says with a wide grin, facing his idol, is so much better. I can work with this. That's great, my boy, All Might exclaims, a smile gracing his features at his young friend's excitement. Do you have a name for this technique? Looking down at the energy coating his arms, Midoriya recalls a memory. One of May excitedly describing engineering terms with the excitement of someone doing things they love. I've got one, Izuku says confidently. One for all, 𝐀𝐦. The thing about suddenly gaining super speed, Midoriya thinks with a grunt as he slams face first into a car door with though forced to shear it from its hinges, is that it doesn't come with an immediate understanding of how to use it. Shaking the sand and metal shavings from his hair, the ninth holder stands up with a grunt, facing the opposite wall of cars, preparing to try yet again to get his new speed under control. It had been a month since he was given one for all, and his control, as well as the amount he could actually use, had improved in leaps and bounds, with the notable exception of running. For some reason, his body and mind just couldn't connect when it came to running with one for all. Kicking and jumping went fine, but running left him stumbling, tripping, and running into things. Toshinori was no help at all, one for all apparently having come completely natural to him, only able to give the advice, you've got to feel it, and clench your butt cheeks. It probably also didn't help that his one for all threshold had increased as well. Izuku was now comfortably using what Toshinori, and he estimated to be 20% of the awesome power. And Midoriya can now use about 5% of it subtly, without sparkling like the 4th of July. Midoriya trudges into Bastion's dojo, and is taken by surprise when an unfamiliar voice catches his attention. I don't suppose you know when Bastion will be back? Izuku almost drops his duffel bag as he jumps in surprise. Sorry I surprised you, a blue-haired man laughs. That was quite a reaction though. It wasn't unusual to see people he didn't know at the dojo, given that it was a hub for underground heroes, but something about the man, who was familiar, and certainly a hero given his physique and general bearing, was familiar in ways that underground pros never were. He'll be back in an hour or so, Midoriya replies, analyzing what he could about the stranger, trying to figure out his hero identity. Went to the store for some groceries. The man's face isn't recognizable, which given the popularity of heroes means that he's one of the few that are masked, which significantly narrows the pool of options. A diminutive 𝐀𝐦 logo on his shoes, and a set of exhaust pipes peeking from beneath his sleeves cement the man's identity. 𝐀𝐦. Midoriya is internally freaking out, yet outwardly calm. 𝐀𝐦 is one of his favorite heroes, and it's all he can do to not gush and ask for his autograph. I'm impressed, 𝐀𝐦 says with a raised eyebrow. Not many can identify me without my armor on. You can call me Tensei Ida. Nice to meet you, Tensei, Midoriya nods. I'm Midoriya Izuku. And your hero name? Oh, Midoriya stutters. I'm not a hero. Yet, really? Tensei looks surprised. I didn't know anyone came here who want a hero. You said, yet, are you training to be one? Yeah, I've been training here for about 3 years now, and I'm trying for you. At the next entrance exam. Well, I'm sure you'll do well, if you've been training with Bastion, Tensei nods. My brother will be taking the exam at the same time. You might end up in the same class. I'm looking forward to it, Midoriya says with a grin, turning to head upstairs. Oh, actually, can I ask you for some advice? Shoot. I recently discovered a way to go really fast with my quirk, but it's hard to control it, Midoriya explains. Do you have any tips or tricks that can help? Let me guess, Tensei says with a laugh. You're running into walls and struggling to turn or brake. Yeah, exactly, Izuku exclaims. How did you know? I think everyone with a speed quirk runs into that problem at the beginning, Tensei explains. I certainly did. Tensei stands up and moves to one wall of the dojo. I could tell plenty of stories of my brother's escapades as he learned. There's no easy quick way to get better, other than hard work and practice. But there is one tip I can give. The secret, 𝐀𝐦 says, before his engines rev and he blurs to the other wall, executing a sharp turn and speeds back again in an instant, is precision. Midoriya is oddly sweaty and disheveled, Toshinori notes as he gets to the arena of cars, almost like he's been here and been practicing for hours, which is mildly concerning considering it is currently barely minutes past dawn. His protege is practically vibrating with excitement, shaking out the jitters in his limbs and jumping up and down. So eager to get your ass kicked today, young Midoriya? Toshinori asks. I might surprise you today, Izuku says with a smirk. Very well, All Might says, shifting to his hero form. Let's fight. Faster than he's been before, Midoriya sweeps a leg through the sand, kicking it into his eyes and forming a veil of it, obscuring him from view. All Might claps, dispelling the sand, and he blinks in surprise when Izuku isn't there. A crackle of energy behind him alerts him, and Toshinori spins to see Izuku running along the wall of cars, legs sparking as he speeds towards him. His surprise at his mentee's mastering of running is so great that he doesn't react in time to stop the brutal kick to his side, sending the hero stumbling backward. Very good, Toshinori exclaims, a proud smile on his face. Now we can really fight. A powered smash to his student's face sends the teen rocketing backward with a clang. And as Izuku stands up with a groan, he thinks, yeah, I still have a long way to go. Hey, Mei, I can't stay long. Yosai said he wanted me at the dojo today, Izuku calls as he walks into his friend's workshop, dropping his bag on the ratty couch that is suspiciously marked with more scorch marks. Hey Thur. Midoriya nods to the stationary robot in the corner. Long time no see. Command not recognized. Yeah, love you too, buddy. That's fine, Hatsum says, tossing something at his head. My surprise is ready. Izuku hasn't seen his friend this excited in a while, and he looks down at the object he catches. It's what appears to be a heavy iron crown, with several hidden ports and buttons on the side. What's this? He asks in confusion. It's part of your hero suit, Mei bounces excitedly. Put it on, put it on, put it on. Midoriya gingerly places it on his head, and is surprised by the weight of it. Mei, this is really heavy, he says cautiously. I don't think that's very good for my hero gear. It's fine, his pink-haired friend waves off. It's just a prototype. I can make it lighter when we're in UA. And I have better materials. Some part of his heart swells at her certainty that they'll get into UA. That's not the important part, though. What is then? Midoriya asks with a raised eyebrow. What's inside? Mei says with a manic grin. Hit the button on the side. Izuku follows her instructions and jumps slightly as things start moving on his head. An incomplete face guard folds out, hanging near his chin, and a green-tinted visor swings down over his eyes. Hatsum is practically vibrating as an icon appears in the visor, the letters Roman 6 rotating around as some sequence starts up. Hello? A voice sounds in his ear. I'm a Roman 6 that will be your assistant for combat and analysis. I'm looking forward to working with you, boss. The voice is excited, with a slight staticky quality to it. Midoriya looks at Hatsum in awe. Is this an AI? Technically, she's a Roman 6, Hatsum explains. She's there to aid you with analyzing villains and situations, and she can hopefully help you out. Mei, this is incredible, but why? Hatsum blushes slightly, but soldiers on. You're my best friend, Zuko, and I can't be out there with you in the field. And this is the best thing I can think of to protect you. Mei, Midoriya's voice softens as he wraps his friend in a hug. Thank you. They separate a moment later, both with light blushes on their faces, and Midoriya asks a question. Does she have a name? I actually thought you could name her, Hatsum explains. Midoriya thinks for a second, recalling the Roman 6 icon that popped up in the startup sequence, and makes a decision. I'm gonna call her Roman 6. You know that Roman 6 stands for virtual intelligence, right? I'm gonna call her Roman 6, Midoriya says adamantly. Hatsum facepalms as the newly christened Roman 6 pipes up. I like it. Whatever, Mei says as she laughs. Never change, Zuko. Midoriya moves to hand the crown back to his friend, but Hatsum waves him off. Keep her. She's going to learn from you the more you interact, so you should work with her as much as you can. Izuku nods in understanding, stashing it in his bag. She's equipped with Bluetooth and satellite access, 𝐻𝐡𝐢𝐬 explains, and will connect to your phone and any calm system automatically. Thanks a lot, 𝐻𝐡𝐢𝐬, Midoriya says, hugging her again and making his way out of the door. This is the best birthday gift ever. It's his birthday? May asks Arthur, confused. Did you know that? Arthur, naturally, doesn't answer. As Midoriya unlocks the door to the dojo, something makes him hesitate. Some sixth sense or tingle down his spine. It's not like when his quirk shouts that he's in danger, so he warily opens the door anyways. The interior is completely dark, a rarity for this time of day, and it sets him even more on edge. Taking a cautious step inside, he shuts the door and makes for the light switch on the far wall. Arms suddenly wrap around him from behind, and almost on instinct Midoriya throws an elbow back, slamming into his attacker into the ground. The lights flip on, and a giant cry of surprise accompanied by the sounds of confetti poppers rings out. Midoriya freezes like a deer in the headlights as the decorations, party hats, cake, presents, and groaning chameleon on the floor behind him register. I told you, you shouldn't have surprised him, Dendro says smugly to the chameleon hero as she helps him stand up gingerly. The rest of the underground heroes crowd Midoriya, slapping him on the back and giving him hugs, wishing him a happy birthday. Midoriya has tears of happiness in his eyes. Guys, you shouldn't have. Why wouldn't we celebrate our favorite hero to be's birthday? Bastion says with a laugh, ruffling Midoriya's long hair playfully. How did y'all even know? Midoriya was fairly certain he didn't tell anyone when his birthday was. He wasn't fond of celebrating it given that it was also the anniversary of his father's disappearance. Dendro hacked the quirk registry, Yasai deadpans, pointing at the paralytic hero who waves sheepishly in response. Well, Midoriya says, that's, certainly one way to do it. Before anyone else can say anything, a wolf whistle cuts through the room. Hey-wo, hunk alert, Midnight calls out, stalking through the front door with Aizawa and present Mix in tow. Leave the kid alone, Kayama, Aizawa grunts, walking up to Midoriya and slugging him in the shoulder and greeting. Damn, you got tall, Izuku. What are you two talking about? Midoriya asks with bewilderment, looking down at himself. Wait, what the fuck? The shirt he's wearing, one of his favorite shirts Miju, looks practically painted on. His abs and defined chest muscles readily apparent. His biceps straining at the fabric. It's also shorter. Or am I taller, he thinks, as the shirt's a scant few inches from being a crop top. Several inches of his ankles are showing on his sweatpants, and now that his attention has been brought to it, all of his clothes feel tighter. Kid, you're like 6'5" now, Aizawa says. You realize that, right? When the hell did this happen? Awa, present Mike cries. Our little listener is all grown up. They're interrupted by Pathfinder, Chameleon, and Double Tap all groaning in anguish, forking over a couple of thousand yen to a smiling Panacea. Why'd you have to tell him, Midnight? Pathfinder whined. We had almost gotten to the date I picked. Y'all bet on when I would notice this? Midoriya exclaims incredulously. Yeah, no offense, sweetie, Panacea replies. But you're very oblivious. Midoriya groans, slamming his head into the wall again and again. Only my life. Over in the corner, an unseen Tensei leans over to Tsukachi. Are they always like this? The detective nods sagely. They're the oddest makeshift family I've ever met. After Midnight secures a promise for them to go shopping for clothes soon, something that sends Kayama and Hisashi bouncing with excitement, and Aizawa groaning. On a scale of 1 to 10 of excitement, Shoto was dead and Hisashi was rapidly vibrating towards 11. Everyone gathers around the table, handing out cake, and Midoriya gets handed his presents. Tensei gives him a pair of Ingenium sneakers. Hisashi gives him a set of fancy headphones. Midnight gives him a t-shirt that says, Hero Suit. Tsukachi gives him a signed All Might poster that would have reduced him to tears had he not been pretty desensitized to All Might's presence. Yasai approaches next, a long thin bundle wrapped in cloth. I had this commissioned for you, he says seriously, by a traditional blacksmith in Europe. It's a culmination of many years of metallurgical development and is incredibly sharp and durable. He sets it on the table and Midoriya unwraps it. A gleaming sword sits in front of him. It's a hand-and-a-half sword, a plain steel hilt wrapped in wire, a thin crossbar, and a sturdy pommel complement the shiny blade, the imprints of hours of hammer work evident on its smooth surface. Izuku's eyes shimmer with unshed tears as he embraces his mentor of several years. Thank you so much, Yasai. This means a lot. Bastion pats him on the back as he hugs him in return. Here, I think you'll like this. Aizawa's raspy voices startled him. And Izuku looks up to see the erasure hero handing him a cardboard tube. This is from all of us here at the agency. Midoriya pops the cap off and unfurls the poster inside. It's a large poster, maybe 4 feet long, and is certainly a custom job. Incredible hand-drawn images of all the underground heroes detail cover the poster, and each one is signed by the heroes in question. We got this custom made for you, Dendro explains. Aizawa knew an artist we could trust, and we all posed so they could draw us in costume. Guys, this is too much, Midoriya says, tears spilling from his eyes. I love it. Group hug. The shout comes from one of the 3 musketeers, and everyone piles on top of him. Midoriya is laughing from the bottom as even Aizawa and Yasai join in. I love you guys. This was it. Earlier in the week, he had cleared away the rest of the beach. The arena of cars dragged away with his newfound strength. He had sparred for hours, with All Might and Yasai separately. He was as ready as he would ever be. This was it. Izuku stands in front of the massive gates of UA on the day of the entrance exam. The massive towers looming in front of him. This is the culmination of all my hard work. Every drop of sweat and blood I've spilled to improve myself, to start my path to becoming a hero. Midoriya takes his first step through the gate, towards his future. This is my starting line. His foot catches on a broken path stone, and seemingly in slow motion, the green-haired man pitches forward. Or I'll just die. As he shoots his hands out to catch himself, a hand slaps his back and Midoriya can feel the gravity on him vanish. Unfortunately, this coincided perfectly, or rather imperfectly, with his hands pushing against the stone floor, resulting in his enhanced strength sending him shooting through the air where he collides with the top of the gate, cracking the cement. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. A sunny voice cries up to him, seemingly frantic. I stopped you with my quirk. I'm sorry I didn't ask first, but I figured it would be bad luck to fall right before the exam, and I didn't think you were going to do anything. Midoriya blinks at the onslaught of words from the tall girl, who is frantically waving her hands around. I'll let you down, the girl exclaims, pressing her fingertips together. Midoriya feels his gravity return to him, and before he can react he falls face first onto the ground with a thunk. Oh again, he says, muffled with his face pressed into the concrete. Izuku gingerly pushes himself up and almost gets knocked down again when a shoulder collides with his. Get the fuck out of the way, Deku, Bakugo growls, and stop wasting everyone's time. The explosive blonde stalks away, glaring at everyone in the courtyard before Midoriya can respond. He seems horrible, the girl says tactfully, a blush on her face for some reason as she brushes the dust off his shirt. Before Midoriya can reply, a bell sounds, and everyone hurries out of the courtyard. Ah, the pink-cheeked girl cries, that's the 5-minute alarm, we're going to be late. She rushes into the building with a hurried, nice to meet you, Deku, thrown behind her as she goes. Well, Midoriya thinks, that certainly was a sequence of events. A moment later, what she said dawns on him. Shit. I'm going to be late for the written exam. I have to find my room. And the green-haired teen rushes in after her. Momo Yaoyorozu is panicking. One might think that she is panicking because she has to take the recommended student's entrance exam in a few hours, a notoriously cutthroat test with few who pass it. One would be wrong. One could also think that she is panicking because she has to take the UA written exam, something that has a minuscule 12% acceptance rate. One would also be wrong about that. No, Momo Yaoyorozu is panicking because she, a composed society girl, creation quirked, heir of the famous Yaoyorozu family, has 2 minutes before the written exam starts. And she is very, very lost. She rounds a corner of the maze-like halls of UA, chanting to herself, 13C, 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 as she frantically looks for her testing room, room 13C. The rooms around her are labeled Z, which makes no sense at all, so Momo dashes off down another hallway. Yaoyorozu darts around another corner, only to run into what feels like a moving brick wall, and fall onto the ground. Ouch! Rubbing her forehead as a red mark makes itself evident, the black-haired girl gazes up to see her obstacle. A green-haired man with a concerned look on his face gazes down on her. Are you all right? He asks, extending his hand down to help her up. That was quite a fall, you seem to be in a hurry. Momo takes his hand, and the man levers her up. However, due to their foot placement, Momo ends up pressed against his chest once she stands up. His very firm, muscular chest. The creation quirked girl can feel her cheeks burning as she feels his muscles flex against her. And she says, "I'm sorry. I'm just in a hurry because I can't find the room in which I'm supposed to take my test." Her face burns even redder as she catches her slip. My test. The man has a confused look on his face as he takes a step backward. And Momo catches a glance of his bulging muscles underneath a shirt that says, "Hero suit," which is odd. "Do you know what room you are in?" 13B, she tells him, slowly gaining control of her blush. "You're in luck," the man says with an easy grin. "I'm in 13A, and I know where it is." He quickly guides her down a staircase, down a hallway, and halfway up another hallway. "Here we are," he says brightly. 13A and 13B. "Thank you," she says profusely. "I was exceptionally lost." "It's no problem," the man waves off. "Good luck on your test. I hope you get in." "And you as well," Momo replies, entering her testing room just as the bell rings. Man, Izuku thinks, walking into his own room. If all the girls at UA are as pretty as her and the girl at the gate, I'm going to spontaneously combust. Izuku steps off the bus to the testing center, head still reeling at the fact that Hisashi, present Mike, is proctoring the physical test, and is taken aback at the size of the testing field. A mammoth model city looms in front of him as the buses spew other UA hopefuls out near the gate. Izuku spots the girl from the gate and tries to make his way over to her when a hand claps onto his shoulder. "Can't you see she's preparing for the exam, as you should be?" It's the interrupter from the orientation, stern-faced and authoritative. The blue-haired man's glasses glint in the sun as he continues. "Or are you trying to sabotage her to better your chances?" Midoriya thinks he looks oddly familiar, but can't place where from. "Actually," Midoriya replies, "she helped me earlier, and I wanted to thank her." The other man opens his mouth to say something, but whatever it is drowned out by present Mike's screech. "Ejin," firing up one for all in his legs, Midoriya shoots out into the testing ground at full speed. The smell of mint and ozone, the only thing he leaves behind as the other test takers look on dumbly. "What are you doing?" Present Mike screams. There are no countdowns in real life. He has the right idea. Go, go, go. The rest of the test takers take off after the green-haired man as he reaches the first robots. Midoriya smirks as he comes upon the first of the mock opponents. Robots are his best-case scenario, as he can be destructive as he wants with them. He had reached 30% power with one for all the following week, and Izuku uses the full force to slams his armored fist through the head of the one-pointer facing him. The power from the punch blows away the robot behind his target as well, and Midoriya grins, energy crackling along his armored arms and chest. Oh yeah, this is going to be fun. Aizawa shoots a glance at the emaciated form of All Might in the corner of the observation room. He had been just as surprised as the rest of the teachers when Nezu had announced that All Might would be teaching this year, and would willingly admit that he had choked on air when the number one had revealed his injury and time limit to them. The implications of the weakness of the symbol of peace was not lost on Shota. And while he doesn't agree with the publicity the man draws, there's no concealing the fact that All Might is a tremendous and capable hero. The skinny man discreetly wipes away some blood from the corner of his mouth, and Aizawa is drawn off of his people watching as Hisashi calls start. The assembled teachers watch the exam unfold, most of their attention on the flashier examinees, such as the kid wielding explosions with skill, the girl floating and dropping robot after robot, and the Edaten heir. Aizawa's focus is elsewhere, on the examinees with subtler quirks more suited to underground heroism. He knows that Nezu sends a copy of all the footage to Bastion for the same reason. But it doesn't hurt to have the first eyes watching out. "Has anyone caught your eye?" Nezu asks his assembled teachers, perking up as Eraserhead shuffles through a stack of piles and pulls one out. Shinsu Hitoshi, Shota reads out to the assembled heroes. His quirk is brainwashing. It allows him to take control of a target who responds to him verbally. An impressive quirk for heroics, but unfortunately not much good in this exam. Aizawa tossed the file away in disgust. "This is why I've said we need to change the exam for years." "There's still the rescue points," Vlad King offered up consolingly. "It's not enough." "Is he cleared for support gear?" Midnight interjected sharply. "No, he's not." "So where did he get that then?" She gestured at the 7-foot glowing green spear the teen was impaling robots on. Principal Nezu's furry ears perk up. Rewind the tapes. They all watch attentively as the footage rewound until the spear appeared. There. quickly pulling up the file of the student he was interacting with. Aizawa announced, "That's Midoriya Izuku." Then, in an impressive double take, the name of the kid he'd been training for nearly 3 years registers. Midoriya? Aizawa, Kayama, and Hisashi all watch attentively as Midoriya forms armor around himself and impales robots on his glowing green sword. Aizawa is struck speechless, but Midnight's question breaks the silence. "So, did you know he could do that?" "No." Aizawa bites out, feeling hurt that the kid kept it from him. "No, I did not." Midoriya isn't sure what it is. Maybe it's the pounding of his heart in his ears that echoes the pounding of his feet on the pavement. Maybe it's the smell of smoke and the burning of exertion in his lungs. Maybe it's the sound of his quirk, swords and shields clashing with what feels like approval in his mind. Maybe it's the fact that he doesn't have to hold back. He can swing his sword as hard as he wants and not have to worry about his opponent. He's at full strength, dashing through the mock streets of the testing ground. Maybe it's just him. Maybe it's the smile on his face. But he's never felt more alive. Midoriya is glad he remembered to leave Hatsume's ankle weights at home. As nice as it would have been to have a bit of his best friend with him for support, and as useful as they are for training, twice the weight of his body hanging by his shins would only slow him down. Plus, he'd probably get dinged for unauthorized support gear. The green-haired man somersaults through the air, transferring one for all from his legs to his arms as he cleaves a one-pointer in two, while simultaneously kicking through the carapace of a three-pointer, destroying its circuitry. He stops to catch his breath and regroup as the robots collapse in a shower of sparks. He doesn't truly need to, what with the hellish training regiment that All Might put him through. But he takes the time to gather his thoughts and tally his points. By his last count, he's at 34 points, lower than he'd like considering he's encountered mostly one-pointer robots, and he's wasted time by helping other examinees. Destroying a piece of rubble about to careen into a girl. Shielding a boy from a hail of rubber bullets he didn't see coming. Liberating a trio of test takers who were cornered by several robots. He doesn't regret helping them. The hero in him won't let him. But Izuku is worried that it might cost him the exam. A scream from Present Mike alerts him that they've reached the halfway point, and that there are only 5 minutes left, and Midoriya heaves himself up with a muttered curse. Better get back to it. A sound catches his ear, and as Midoriya rounds the corner to investigate, he's taken aback by the sight of a purple-haired man with no visible quirk wailing on a one-pointer with a piece of scrap. Why, smack, won't. Smash, you, crash, fucking. Die. Not wanting to steal the other examinee's kill, but also not wanting the man to get injured, Midoriya resolves himself to keep watch. With one last shout of anger, the man slams the scrap metal into the joints of the one-pointer, breaking its joints and sending it sparking to the ground where it shuts down. They seem oddly weak, Midoriya thinks as the purple-haired man sinks to his knees. Almost like they were made to break. Oh wait. Right. Entrance exam. Izuku turns away with the intention of finding more robots when a whirring sound meets his ears. One robot turns the corner closest to the purple-haired man, and another darts onto the street about a block away. The other examinee doesn't notice as the far robot revs up its turret, and the close one rears back with a robotic arm. With a curse, Midoriya activates his quirk and moves. Shinsu is sore. Shinsu is angry. Shinsu fucking hates robots. These thoughts, accompanied by a plethora of swears, ring through the brainwashing quirked man's head. Quickly eclipsing them, however, from his position on the ground, is alarm at the sound of a mock villain's gun spinning up, and the rubber bullets painting a line along the asphalt towards him. This is going to hurt, the purple-haired teen thinks, closing his eyes and gritting his teeth. He's in no position to move, kneeling in the rubble as he is. All he can hope is that the robots don't hit him for too long. Except, the bullets never hit him, and the reared back arm never connects. The sound of both robots crumpling to the ground echoes in Shinsu's ears as he gingerly opens his eyes, taking in the sight of a man glowing green, one fist through the head of the near robot, his other arm outstretched where he threw a fucking sword at the other one, impaling it and deactivating it. The tall fucker isn't even breathing hard where he stands above the purple man, a stupidly friendly grin on his face and his hand outstretched to Shinsu. "You okay, man?" "I'm fine," Hitoshi grumbles, accepting the hand up and dusting himself off. "Stupid strong people with stupid flashy quirks. I didn't mean to steal your points." The green-haired man fixes his hair back into its ponytail. "But you seemed like you needed a hand." "I did," the purple-haired teen grudgingly admits as he curses. Stupid fucking robots. Ah, the other man nods. You have a mental quirk, don't you? 𝗀𝐸 instinctively bristles. Had anyone else said that he would have detected pity or derision in their voice. But this man's tone was oddly understanding. Seemingly sensing 𝗀𝐸's confusion, the tall man nods and explains. I thought I didn't have a quirk till a year and a half ago, so I would have been in the same boat as you for the entrance exam had mine not manifested. That's rough. Greenie shrugs. It was what it was. Looking 𝗀𝐸 up and down, he asks, What is your quirk? 𝗀𝐸 sighs, internally bracing for the hate and vitriol that always wells up whenever he tells someone his quirk. It's brainwashing. Huh, cool. Cool? 𝗀𝐸 asks, stunned. That's it? Yeah, the green-haired man says. There's no need for me to gush about it as much as I want to. I'm sure you hear about how it's great for heroics all the time. Not really. 𝗀𝐸's voice cracks in the middle of really, as his mind reels. This is the first time someone hasn't instantly condemned him as a villain, and it's honestly shaking his worldview. That's dumb. It would be super useful for heroics, although, the other man admits, pretty useless for robots. Tell me about it, 𝗀𝐸 scoffs. Hey, the man exclaims, I've got an idea to help you. 𝗀𝐸, Hitoshi supplies, bristling slightly. And I don't need your pity help. I'm Midoriya, the green-haired man introduces himself. And it's not pity. I want to pass on my own merits, 𝗀𝐸 snarls, not riding in someone else's coattails. And you will. Midoriya is calm in the face of 𝗀𝐸's anger. I'm only going to be helping you help yourself. Now brainwash me and ask for a weapon. Huffing in exasperation, Hitoshi resigns himself to whatever scheme Midoriya has thought up. Hey Midoriya, what's your quirk? It's, 𝗀𝐸 watches as the familiar glazed look appears in Midoriya's eyes. Give me a weapon. The smell of mint washes over the two as a glowing green spear forms in Midoriya's hand, which he blankly hands to an awestruck 𝗀𝐸. The purple-haired teen is admiring the long weapon when Midoriya unexpectedly speaks up. That was interesting. I'll have some questions about how your quirk works when we get to the hero course. 𝗀𝐸 looks up sharply. Did he just break out of my brainwashing? Anyways, good luck, Midoriya calls as he begins jogging away. I'll see you later. Wait, 𝗀𝐸 shouts after the odd man. How do I use this? It's easy, Midoriya shouts, voice fading into the distance. Just stick them with a pointy end. Hitoshi shakes his head wryly, looking at the spear in amusement. Right? Just stick them with the pointy end. How hard could it be? The teacher's control room is quiet as the footage stops. Toshinori smiles softly, proud of his successor's actions. Acting like a true hero, Izuku, always helping others. I do love seeing ingenuity in our applicants. Nedzu's voice rings out as the assembled teachers process the footage, watching the two applicants part as the tape winds back to the present actions of the examinees. That's all well and good, Vlad King replies. But how do we score that? Applicants are split up into separate testing grounds just so the teachers don't face dilemmas in scoring like this. It was rare for complete strangers to aid each other in ways that could affect scoring. Most tried to work on gaining their own points rather than help other people score. 𝗀𝐸 was scoring points, but he couldn't have gotten them without the spear Midoriya had given him. Isn't it obvious? Nedzu laughs. Because young 𝗀𝐸 used his quirk to obtain the spear, despite it being Midoriya's suggestion. We cannot penalize them, so we must award him the points. The Chimera claps his furry hands together. In addition, award Midoriya rescue point for each point 𝗀𝐸 acquires with the spear. As the teachers mutter to themselves and adjust the scoring program accordingly, the principal's voice rings out again. Keep a camera on Midoriya. I have a feeling he still has some surprises for us. Some of the teachers shudder at the ominous glee in the principal's voice. Anyone who attracts Nedzu's attention that way is not someone to be envied. Keep a camera on Midoriya. I have a feeling he still has some surprises for us. Some of the teachers shudder at the ominous glee in the principal's voice. Anyone who attracts Nedzu's attention that way is not someone to be envied. Uraraka Ochako has never felt better. The scent of gunpowder, hot metal, ash, and oddly enough, mint filling her senses. The sounds of crashing metal and the burn of exertion in her muscles. The feeling of adrenaline coursing through her veins offsetting the growing pit of nausea from quirk use. She's in her competitive element. She's practically floating, quirk notwithstanding. It's great to be able to go full out, she thinks as she releases her quirk, sending a pair of 3-pointers plummeting to the ground. All her training for the entrance exam had been primarily focused on upping her quirk's limit, so being able to let loose in a combat situation was new and exciting. With a grunt of discomfort, she removes her gravity and leaps to the roof of a nearby building, stomach protesting as she floats through the air. Her time limit of floating herself without succumbing to nausea has improved over the past couple of months, but it is still an uncomfortable process. Alighting softly on the edge, she returns her gravity and surveys the battlefield, looking for areas to gain more points. A commotion catches her eye, a student cornered by a 2-pointer, her hair-based quirk doing nothing to defend her from its strikes. Jumping down, 𝐸𝐸 removes her gravity just enough to keep her fall under lethal speeds, and releases her quirk just in time to slam onto the shoulders of the robot, driving it to the ground in a shower of sparks. 52. The pink-cheeked gravity girl crows out her points, shaking her hair back into its place from where it had fallen into disarray due to her rough landing. Thanks, the other girl gasps. It almost had me. Whatever Ochako was going to say is drowned out by Present Mike's cry of, 2 minutes left, and a tremendous rumbling and crash of rubble as an enormous robot rears its head a couple of blocks away. Man, they really weren't kidding about the whole plus ultra thing, were they? 𝐸𝐸 thinks as she pushes the other girl into a run, trying to put as much distance between them and the 0-pointer as they could. Another tremendous crash tears out through the testing ground as the two join several other examinees in sprinting down the street, the 0-pointer's arm tearing through a building like it was made of paper, flinging rubble into the air. 𝐸𝐸's eyes widen as a shadow passes overhead, and she instinctively looks up. A massive chunk of concrete is flying towards them, on a beeline for the girl in front of her. There's no hesitation in her actions as she throws her shoulder into the other girl, pushing her out of the way of the rubble that would have surely crushed her. Ochako sighs in relief as they both get back to their feet and continue running, uninjured. She doesn't see the next piece of rubble that flies by, but it knocks the breath out of her as it slams her to the ground, pinning her ankle underneath it, and forcing her into a position on her stomach where she cannot reach back and touch the boulder to activate her quirk. The 0-pointer ominously rumbles closer on a collision course, unstopping and uncaring of her plight. Someone, 𝐸𝐸 calls out weakly to the running examinees as air returned to her lungs. Everyone's faces turned away from her. Anyone, please, help me. Isn't that a little bit overkill? 𝗧𝗏 sputters out around the blood that floods the number 1 pro's mouth as the 0-pointer makes an appearance. And dangerous. No more than any of the other robots in the exam, 𝗫𝐸 supplies cheerfully. In fact, aside from the sheer size of our 0-pointers, one could argue that they are the safest of our mock villains due to all the fail-safes built into it. Fail-safes? The skeleton thin hero inquires. The 0-pointer is programmed to not go for kill shots and direct hits like the other bots, the furry principal explains, and is not equipped with the guns that are standard on the other mock villains. Even a near miss from that behemoth could result in a severe injury, 𝗧𝗏 hedges. You are correct, and that is why Power Loader, 𝗫𝐸 gestures to the exoskeleton-covered hero in the corner, has a direct override to the 0-pointer, so we can shut it down should an examinee end up in too dangerous a situation. That's good, All Might comments, relievedly, before something catches his eye. The emaciated blonde points to the main screen, drawing the other teacher's attention. A situation like that. The teachers look attentively at a young girl trapped by rubble, Aizawa shuffling through papers to find her file. 𝐸𝐸 Ochako, the dour pro announces. Her quirk is 0 gravity, so she should be able to get out of there. No look, Nimari interjects. She's pinned so she can't activate her quirk. She can't get out. Power Loader, 𝗫𝐸 seems to make a decision. Redirect the 0-pointer. Yes, 𝗫𝐸. On the screen, the massive robot trundles slowly forward. Power Loader, 𝗫𝐸 asks, taking in the man's frantic typing and furrowed brow. Why isn't it stopping? It's not responding to my commands, Higari replies. I don't know why. 𝗫𝐸, Aizawa calls, getting the principal's attention. It's targeting her. The furry chimera's eyes gleam, a sure sign of his quirk, high spec, working overdrive. All Might? The blonde pro answers the principal's unspoken question with a shaken head. I'm out of time for today. Ectoplasm? One of my clones won't reach her in time. The clone hero answers sharply. But I will try. Damn, the principal curses as the tension in the room skyrockets. Mike? No good. 𝗫𝐸, the voice hero answers, tension evident in his voice. Any shockwave I could produce to knock it off course would push it onto other examinees. Can anyone do anything? It's highly unusual to hear the normally demure principal raise his voice in anger, and everyone frantically searches for a way to save the trapped girl when a green blur catches Midnight's eye. "Wait," Kayama says, pointing at one of the screens. "Look." Uraraka is panicking. She's not ashamed to admit. She's pinned down, trapped in the path of a huge robot that is targeting her. Her struggles to escape the rubble pinning her is only serving to aggravate her very broken ankle and score new scrapes and cuts on her skin. No one seems to hear her cries for help, and as the robot rears back its massive arm, winding up for a punch at her, she can only think, "Mom, Dad, I'm so sorry." Her eyes close as the arm begins to fall, and the smell of mint fills her senses. The arm falls with a massive thud, kicking up dust and rubble all around her. But when the dust clears, to Uraraka's confusion, she's still alive. Gingerly opening her eyes, she is taken aback by the sight of a tall man bracing a translucent shield against the fist of the robot, his limbs crackling with energy. "It's okay now," the green-haired man puts on a smile as the robot's servos strain against his strength. "Because I am here." Uraraka's mouth drops open in surprise at the man who just tanked the blow of a building-sized robot. "Can you move?" he asks, kindly but urgently. Ochako tests the weight of the boulder pressed against her, struggling to reach it with her quirk. "No." She apologizes, wincing in pain. The zero-pointer rears back its hand, freeing the man from the crushing force before quickly slamming back down. A blow that the man meets with a roar and a clash of his ghostly green shield. She watches as the pavement around the man cracks, his legs sinking into the craters formed from the force of the blow. He can't keep this up, Uraraka realizes. I can't keep this up, Midoriya realizes, gritting his teeth through his smile as he feeds more of One for All into his arms. He's up to 45% now, he thinks, and he can feel the strain tugging at his arms. He's also certain that an X-ray would show hairline fractures on his superpowered arms. Wincing through his pain, his analytical mind races. He can't let go, because the next blow would crush himself and the gravity girl. He can't snatch the girl and run away for the same reason. The zero-pointer is too close and too fast. He really has only one option. Time to go plus ultra, he thinks grimly. With a pained shout, he pulses 50% of One for All into his arms, shoving back the massive form of the zero-pointer, giving him room to counterattack. For everyone watching, what happens next takes place in a smattering of seconds. For Midoriya, the space between heartbeats seems to last hours. Thump thump. Midoriya casts One for All into his legs, bouncing between buildings like a sparking green ping-pong ball. A move that makes Toshinori and the control booth choke on air, the similarities to Gran Torino's style of movement causing minor panic. Thump thump. Izuku nears the top of the buildings, nearly level with the massive robot as he shoots higher. All the other robots had weak points, especially in the head. Hopefully, this one does too. One last kick sends him shooting into the air, and he thinks 50% should do it. Thump thump. As the green-haired man nears the apex of his flight, something catches his eye. Other examinees are running behind the zero-pointer. They're running away, but are still close enough that the robot falling down would crush them. Fuck. Thump thump. He really has only one choice. A full-strength smash that keeps the zero-pointer falling straight down. As he forces 100% of One for All into his arm, forming his sword and drawing back into a throwing stance, he thinks, Chiyo is going to kill me. Here goes nothing. Thump thump. Detruuit. The smell of mint sweeps throughout the testing ground as Midoriya seems to hang in the air above the zero-pointer, his drawn-out shout drawing the attention of everyone in the arena. The zero-pointer's fist and face rising to meet him as he thrusts his sword forward, throwing it with impossible speed and force. Spike. Thump thump. The force from his One for All powered spike of his sword practically disintegrates the zero-pointer. The sword shoots through the chassis like a knife through butter, converting the behemoth into metal scrap and shrapnel. The air pressure from his smash takes all the dangerous shrapnel and forces it straight downwards, with no chance of it shooting anywhere dangerous and hitting other examinees. Thump thump. His sword is impaled in the mound of scrap, sitting there like a modern-day sword in the stone. His arm throbs, and he can tell from the pain that it has broken in several places, the skin mottled purple and ruptured in places. The inheritor of One for All instinctively forms his armor around it in a makeshift splint as he begins to fall. As he plummets headfirst down through the air, he sees the girl he tried to save, now free from her rebel prison. the force of his strike likely having blown it away. Trying to float herself up to reach him and stop his fall, he can tell she won't reach him in time. So he gracefully flips from a headfirst dive till he's falling down feet first. Pouring every bit of energy into his armor that he forms around himself, he sends a little bit of one for all into his legs as he collides with the ground, the epicenter of his own personal meteor crater, a cloud of dust shooting up. The testing ground is silent as everyone watches on. The dust slowly clears, revealing Midoriya kneeling in the crater, dazed but clearly alive. He slumps down till he's lying prone. The ghostly sword impaled in the remains of the behemoth zero-pointer flickers, and then vanishes. In the observation room, the teachers are going wild, cheering and exclaiming at the tremendous heroism shown. Except for 4. All Might is silently congratulating Izuku, fatherly pride practically emanating from his figure at his successor's heroic actions. Nezu's mind is racing. A new hero potential, with the strength and attitude of All Might, yet with smarts akin to Aizawa's or his own, will require careful guiding. He simply cannot wait for the challenge. Mimiri and Aizawa are staring at each other, speechless at the tremendous strength shown by the teen they'd been mentoring for over a year, in addition to everything else they learned about him today. Eraser, Midnight asks weakly. What the actual fuck was that? I don't know, Mimiri. Aizawa's tone is flat, and his face unreadable. I don't know. Izuku comes back to lucidity, to a rather odd feeling caressing him, a weird sort of weightlessness. With a groan, he opens his eyes to see the girl who had tried to help him at the gate, the one he had attempted to save from the zero-pointer, floating him out of his personal crater, looking at him worriedly as she sets him down gently, wincing as the movement jostles her broken ankle. Izuku racks his brain for something to say, but is coming up blank. For some godforsaken reason, the only thing that he can think of is one of the awful pickup lines Midnight had drilled into his head during their training. So, he addresses the gravity girl without thinking. You come here often? The girl stares at him for a minute in confusion, before dissolving into a fit of giggles. Midoriya's laughter at the absurdity of his question quickly follows behind. The injured pair dissolving into laughter as the stress of the day catching up to them. This is how Recovery Girl finds them. 2 students wreathed in the ruins of a zero-pointer, out of breath from laughter. The shouting that rouses a bleary Midoriya from his rest is not an unusual occurrence in the Bakugo household. Tension thrums through the air. Katsuki's aggression is equally matched by his mother's, making the hairs on Izuku's neck stand at attention. This, as well as the level of comfort he feels at Bastion's dojo, is why he rarely spends the night at the Bakugos. Mitsuki and Masaru are wonderful people, but the explosive blonde makes things uncomfortable. Sighing to himself and tucking his feet into his red boots, as well as shrugging on his dad's old jacket, the green-haired man stealthily creeps out the bedroom and past the kitchen where the pair are fighting, checking the mail as he goes. The mail is, of course, the only reason he's sleeping at the Bakugos instead of the dojo, as his mailing address is technically there, due to his mother's will. Another perk of slipping out of the house unnoticed, Izuku thinks as he eases shut the door and pads down the street, trekking towards the dojo under the slowly brightening sky, is that I can avoid Kaken. The explosive blonde has been glaring daggers at Izuku ever since the entrance exam, as if he's offended by the very notion of the green-haired teen trying to be a hero. If harsh looks were weapons, Midoriya would be dead. However, they're not, and Mitsuki keeps Kaken in check while under her roof, so he doesn't have to worry about a confrontation while staying there. A confrontation on the street, however, is much more likely. Bakugo's angry looks point towards a storm brewing, and Izuku is not looking forward to when it breaks. Which is why he picks up the pace, itching to get out of the neighborhood before he can run into Bakugo. Midoriya is about halfway to the dojo, just crossing over into downtown Musatafu, when the notification for an incoming text catches his attention. Hoping it's Hatsume or Toshinori, he slows down and pulls out the device, checking the message. It wasn't a text from either of those two, but instead from Roman 6, and doesn't that just blow Izuku's mind? Being able to message a virtual assistant that his best friend had created to aid in hero work seems like something out of a science fiction novel. Apparently, the virtual intelligence was receiving hardware and software updates by authorized users, which meant that Hatsume was likely on an engineering spree and wouldn't be texting back any time in the next couple days. With a fond smile, Midoriya sends a text to his pink-haired friend reminding her to eat and sleep at acceptable intervals, and text him back when she's done, picking up the pace again as he slips his phone into a jacket pocket, Midoriya thinks that it wouldn't be out of character for Mei to have been accepted immediately into the support course. Those high-density weights are truly miraculous and have holed up in the UA labs the second she could. Faltering slightly, Midoriya worries that UA might not be ready for the unique brand of genius and enthusiasm that is Hatsume. Should I warn them? He mutters to himself, concerned, before deciding. They have pro heroes as teachers. I'm sure whoever is teaching the support course can handle her. Across the city, a hero dressed in an excavator suit feels shivers of fear and foreboding trickle down his spine. The dojo is empty when Izuku opens the door, the hanging bell jingling behind him as the door swings shut. Checking the rec room to see if anyone is there, and finding no one, he makes his way upstairs to his room, hanging his jacket on 𝐴𝐻's frozen frame as he shuts the door most of the way behind him. He's mid-unpacking his duffel bag when a knock on the doorframe catches his attention. Looking up, the familiar form of his mentor, Yasai Yaoyorozu, also known as the pro-hero Bastion, is standing at the door. Midoriya, the look on Bastion's face is what the underground hero agency collectively calls the "you fucked up face." "We need to talk," he makes a beckoning motion as he turns away. "Come with me." Izuku runs through everything he could have done to warrant a scolding and comes up empty. So he sets his bag down quickly and hurries after his mentor. Shooting a quick, mostly joking text to Uraraka. The pair had exchanged numbers and a hearty fist bump when they parted ways after the exam that simply said, "If I don't text in 3 hours, avenge me." Izuku follows Yasai down into the dojo. "So?" his mentor says with a stern face. "So?" Midoriya's voice doesn't crack, but it's a close thing. "I received a set of very interesting footage this morning from an old friend of mine," Yasai says, expression unreadable. "Any idea what that was?" Taking in the look of pure confusion on his pupil's face, the old hero sighs and continues. "Nedzu sends me the entrance exam footage every year, so I can scope out any underground hero prospects." A raised hand forestalls Midoriya's incoming question, and the teen clamps his mouth shut. "And no, I don't know your score." "I wasn't going to ask that," Izuku grumbles petulantly. Ignoring the young man, Bastion pulls out his phone and opens it to show a video playing. "Care to tell me what's going on here?" Midoriya peers closer and sees the footage of him fighting a couple of 3-pointer robots and then the massive 0-pointer. "That's me at the entrance exam," Izuku says, more a question than a statement, confused as to what Yasai is asking. "𝐀𝐦, Bastion grunts. "When were you going to tell me? Your mentor who fights almost exclusively with oral energy shields, that you can create aura-based energy shields." "Oh my god," Midoriya thinks, disbelief and panic warring in his mind. "I forgot to tell Bastion. I am an idiot." He had been so busy training with all might and focusing on gaining control of one, for all that he had completely forgotten to tell Bastion about his quirk evolution. "Would you believe me if I said it had simply slipped my mind?" Midoriya offers up nervously. The look on Bastion's face tells Izuku exactly what his mentor thinks of that statement. "It's true. I was getting some strength training from someone else, and I got so busy working on my quirk I forgot." "𝐀𝐦," the old pro hums disbelievingly. "Whatever," he shrugs. "You're a kid, you make mistakes, but now you'll pay for them." Because that's not a concerning statement at all, Izuku thinks. "I'm going to train you to the bone on this new aspect of your quirk." Bastion's eyes glint wickedly. "Every day, maximum effort until you get into you. Eh?" "If I get into you, eh?" Midoriya mutters to himself, doubt welling in his mind. He had lost count of his points during his encounter with Shinsu and rescuing Uraraka from the 0-pointer, and was worried that he hadn't passed. The fact that All Might still hasn't messaged him back is not helping his anxiety on the outcome of the exam. "Hey," Bastion's gaze is softer now as he claps a hand to Midoriya's shoulder. "Don't doubt yourself. You're an amazing fighter with a heart in the right place. I'm sure your hard work hasn't gone to waste." "Thanks, Yasai," Midoriya sniffs, turning away to wipe away the tears welling up in his eyes, which his mentor kindly doesn't mention. "That means a lot." "I know, kid." Bastion ruffles Midoriya's fluffy green hair. "Now, tell me about what's new with your quirk." Straightening up and drawing his notebook from seemingly thin air, Midoriya flips through till he finds his quirks page. "I can form an aura-based armor around myself, as well as make a sword, shield, and spear with the same energy," Izuku lists off. "On top of my mastery of sword fighting that you already know about." Midoriya taps his chin, searching his brain for what he's forgetting. Oh yeah, I'm super limited in what I can form out of that aura armor. Only that basic sword, shield, and spear. And they can exist away from me for about 5 minutes, or till I lose concentration. And the rest of it? What? The whole super strength thing? Bastion asks incredulously. You vaporized a skyscraper-sized robot with one punch. Don't tell me you forgot. Oh, that, Midoriya says, as he doesn't really think of One for All and Green Knight as one quirk. So it took him a moment to realize what his mentor was talking about. Yes, that, Bastion echoes sarcastically. What was that? Luckily, 𝐬𝐸 and All Might had decided on a cover story for his newfound strength, and this would be its first test. If I focus the energy that I normally push into my armor onto my limbs, it enhances my strength to a huge extent, he explains. So much so that it's actually too much energy. It was a simple explanation, but one that apparently satisfies Bastion, so Midoriya keeps going. It's hard to keep my energy focused on my limbs when I'm also using my sword, shield, and armor, Midoriya explains, looking down at his arms as if they hold the secrets to his quirks. You said you had a trainer? Oh, yeah, Midoriya is noticeably nervous now. He's an old hero. You've probably never heard of him. Try me, Bastion says with a quirked eyebrow. Ah, 𝐬𝐸 winces. His name is Yagi Toshinori. Please don't recognize the name. HMPH, Bastion grunts, an odd glint in his eye. Thank God. Control is something we can work on, as well as dispersion, Yasai assures Midoriya, glossing over his student's answer. We have less time than if you had told me earlier, but we can make it count. I couldn't be where I am today without all the help I've gotten, 𝐬𝐸 thinks, still staring down at his clenched fists. Even with all my hard work, this is still just my starting line. I have so far to go. All right, Bastion grunts, interrupting Midoriya's train of thought. Let's see what you can do. Huh? Midoriya looks up in time to see a fist coated in yellow energy flying at his face. The smell of mint fills the dojo as his green, armor-coated arm swings up and bats the blow away. Come on, Midoriya, Yasai exclaims, a wicked grin on his face lit by the glowing of his quirk. Try to keep up. Show me what you got. It's at moments like these that 𝐬𝐸 remembers that his mentor was a highly successful hero in his own right. But Midoriya can't stop the similar smirk that forms on his face as his armor coats his body, and he quickly falls into a defensive stance, the clash of swords and steel ringing through his head. Bring it on, old man. You know, that wasn't actually half bad. Midoriya lets out a groan from where he's splayed out on the sweat-soaked pads of the dojo floor, gasping for breath. That's easy for you to say, 𝐬𝐸 grumbles. You kicked my ass. Well, Bastion says from where he's perched above Midoriya, I've had much more practice than you. And besides, he says, extending a hand and hoisting Midoriya to his feet, you know what they say. 𝐬𝐸 mutters something that sounds suspiciously like, that dumb pro-heroes with stupidly cool quirks are jerks, under his breath as he stretches. Go take a shower, Midoriya, Bastion says, pushing him towards the stairs. You stink. Yeah, 𝐬𝐸 waves off, plodding towards the stairs. Hey wait, Bastion, what do they say? Go away, Midoriya. Bastion? Bastion, what do they say? Midoriya calls to his teachers retreating back. Are you making fun of me? Yosai, what do they say? His only answer is the retreating cackles from his mentor. Yosai's chuckles fade as he steps into the agency's office, sitting down at the desk and pulling out his old 𝐸𝐸 yearbook. Flipping through the pages, further and further back until he gets to the Y last names, he slows to a stop. There next to his picture, fresh-faced and bushy-haired, is a picture of Yagi Toshinori. What are you teaching my student, All Might? He asks his old friend's picture. Just what are you doing with our boy? The heat from the shower is fogging up the mirror in the bathroom when Midoriya checks his phone again, wiping the steam that's accumulated on the device's screen off. The name Deku starts off the set of worried texts from Uraraka that greet him, and Midoriya's lips quirk into an expression halfway between a grin and a grimace. The bubbly gravity-quirked girl had heard Bakugo call him the insult before the entrance exam, and mistook it for his name. When she had called him Deku after they were both carted to the nurse's office and healed, he had been surprised and offended. Something that had apparently shown on his face, as she had quickly apologized, explaining how she thought it meant Dekuru, or, you can do it. 𝐬𝐸 had been called Deku with derision for years, the words worthless and useless drilled into his soul. As he sat there, shattered arm hanging limp as an irate recovery girl berated him for destroying his bones again, Izuku thought that maybe it was time to change its meaning, to claim it for himself. So with a wry grin, he had told Uraraka, "It's okay, you can call me that, it's different when you say it." Her happy smile had been worth it. But it is still a difficult process to see it not as an insult. Midoriya, if I don't text in 3 hours. Avenge me, Uraraka, Deku. You okay? Uraraka, that was mildly concerning. Uraraka PLS respond, it's too early in my life for a vengeance mission, Midoriya. Lol, I'm fine, Midoriya, my trainer was mad about something and trained me to death, Uraraka. Awfully lively for a ghost. Uraraka. And good at texting, Midoriya. Haha, very funny, Midoriya. No vengeance for you, fortunately, unfortunately. Midoriya. GTG, talk to you later, Uraraka. Midoriya chuckles as he puts down the phone and steps into the shower. Uraraka is a really nice person, and he hopes she gets into you. It would be nice to have a friend in the hero course with him, assuming they both make it in and are in the same class. The cherry blossom tree is bare and skeletal. Its spindly branches cast shadows over his freckled face as Izuku sits against the tree trunk facing his mother's grave and the ocean. His legs splayed out and fingers carting through the grass. His head is quieter than it's been in a while. The ever-present sounds of his instincts that manifest as the clashing of steel and swords are faint, as if his quirk understands the situation. The faint crashing of waves and the taste of salt in the air invade his senses, but don't manage to distract Midoriya from the heavy letter burning a hole in his pocket. The wind tousles his long hair as Izuku stares over the edge of the cliff, past the horizon, the ocean, and the rim of the world. Hey, Mom. Izuku's lips quirk into a sad smile as he begins to speak haltingly. The letter came today, from you. He tells her grave. It's my acceptance or rejection. Izuku's voice falters as he collects his thoughts. I'm a little scared to open it if I'm being honest. What if I don't get in, he asks. What if all my hard work and training is for nothing and I failed? What if I am worthless like everyone said? He doesn't voice. He presses his forehead against his knees. I don't want to let everyone down. I want to make you proud. It didn't feel right to open this without you, Midoriya says to 𝐀𝐦 grave. I miss you. So much. A broken chuckle escapes from his lips as he wipes the fledgling tears out of his eyes. But I guess that's obvious. Drawing the heavy envelope from the pocket of his dad's jacket, the faint smell of mint that his dad and he share floating up as he jostles the fabric, Izuku looks at it seriously. It's deceptively unassuming for an object that will change his life one way or another. Whether for better or for worse, he won't know until it's open. The green-haired man spends far too long turning the letter over and over, fingers tracing the bumps and grooves of the heavy paper, stalling the inevitable. Here goes nothing. Staring at the plain envelope, Izuku steels his nerves and rips it open. To Midoriya's surprise, a heavy metal disc falls out onto his lap, and a hologram flickers to life. I am here, as a projection. All Might? There are tears streaming down Midoriya's face as All Might finishes his speech, detailing his points and class information. Young Midoriya, his mentor gestures widely on the hologram, ever-present smile on his face. This is your hero academia. I got in, Mom, I got in. Izuku tells her gravestone, more excited than he's been in a while. A sound draws his attention back to the hologram. And Izuku, my boy. The blonde hero's smile is softer now, more Toshinori than All Might. I am so proud of you. Midoriya unlocks the door to the dojo, key sliding into the old lock with practiced ease, and something makes him hesitate. Some sixth sense or tingle down his spine. It's not the same sensation as when his quirk warns that he is in danger, so Izuku warily opens the door. The interior is completely dark, a rarity for this time of day, and it sets him even more on edge. Taking a cautious step inside, he shuts the door and makes for the light switch on the far wall, pooling a small amount of one for all to his limbs. Enough to boost his strength, but not enough to light him up like a glowstick. Arms violently wrap around him from the rear, and on instinct Midoriya throws an elbow back, missing as the person dodges, falling to the ground in an effort to evade the green-haired man's blow. The lights flip on, and a giant cry of surprise, accompanied by the sounds of confetti poppers, ring out. Midoriya freezes like a deer in the headlights as everything registers, and a laughing chameleon on the floor behind him calls out, "Ha! You missed me this time." A banner on the wall says, "Happy birthday acceptance," and Izuku can't help but giggle at it. The rest of the underground heroes huddle around Midoriya, slapping him on the back, ruffling his hair, and congratulating him. "I love you guys," Midoriya says, tearing up as he hugs them all back. Midoriya's gaze is drawn to his mentor as the older hero approaches him. "I told you you would make it in." The fond smile on Bastion's face is enough to reduce Midoriya to happy tears as the rest of the dojo crowds around him again, offering congratulations and cheers. Thank you so much for everything," Izuku sobs happily. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Chin up, kid," Bastion says, ruffling his hair. "Besides, your trials don't end here. You're in one right." Midoriya nods, not questioning how his mentor knows that. "I've heard that the Wana teacher expelled his entire class last year," he whispers conspiratorially. The shock and fear in Izuku's eyes are apparent as he gasps out, "Really?" 100% Bastion confirms. Whatever else Midoriya is about to say is interrupted by shouts from the three musketeers. "Little Midoriya, congrats, dude. You made it, man." Izuku is blindsided as Double Tap, Pathfinder, and Chameleon tackle him to the ground, showering him in congratulations as they wrestle and play fight like a squad of puppies. Dendro sidles up to Bastion, watching the quartet roughhouse in the middle of the room. "Are you going to tell him that 𝐲𝗏 is his teacher?" "No." The grin on Yasai's face is wicked and barbed, causing the paralytic heroine to shudder. "I think I'll just let him be surprised." Midoriya's room at the Bakugas is all packed away. His scant few posters and sets of clothes carefully rolled and stuffed into a duffel bag, notebooks filling his backpack. There was surprisingly little at the house. To Izuku's surprise, he had moved almost everything he owned to the dojo, only leaving a few necessary items at the Bakugas house. There was an almost bittersweet feeling as he walks away from the house he had been staying at. After only one more night that he was spending at the dojo, he would be moving into the dorms at 𝐴. Midoriya cuts through an alleyway on his way to the dojo, reminiscing on his time with the Bakugas. He would miss Mitsuki and Masaru. They were kind to him, taking him in as they did, and he can't blame them for Katsuki's behavior. "Deku. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear," Izuku mutters to himself, turning around just in time for the explosive blonde to slam him into the alleyway's wall. A vicious look on his face and popping palms displaying his rage. It takes everything in Midoriya to not immediately counter and drive him into the dirt. But Izuku restrains himself. "I thought it told you not to go to you." "The explosive blonde growls, gripping Izuku's lapels and getting into his face. "You never listen to me, you worthless freak." "I don't need to listen to you." Midoriya's voice is even, but no one could mistake it as genial. "Not now, not ever." "How did you even get in?" Bakugo talks over him, not even listening to the green-haired man. "Why would they let in a quirkless Deku like you? Did you cheat?" "I got in just the same as you, fair and square," Izuku shoots back. "And I've been telling you for years that I'm not quirkless." "Yeah, right," Bakugo spits. "Quit lying to me." That's it. Izuku's had enough. Feeding enough one for all into his hands to effortlessly break Bakugo's grip, he surges upwards, slamming the now shocked blonde into the wall with enough force to crack the brick. "In case you haven't noticed," Midoriya snarls into his tormentor's face, "this isn't high school anymore. Our world has changed. I've changed." Bakugo's eyes are wild, as if he is truly just now noticing that Izuku isn't the same scrawny boy he used to torment. "I'm not the same kid you can beat up on." Midoriya pushes off the explosive blonde, leaving him gasping for breath with his clothes askew. "And Bakugo." Midoriya stalks away, calling over his shoulder as he does, "You're going to have to change too." One last parting shot drives through Katsuki's ears like a sword. "Otherwise, you will be left behind."